This is it. This is it. Like Michael Jackson's planned last tour, this is it for Wrestling Roundtable, at least for now. Roundtable Radio's 50th show is going to be the last, and I'll put an asterisk on there for now because I don't want to say it's completely done. It's like retirement in wrestling. It's only temporary. I mean, if we can figure out a better situation than what it is on Blog Talk Radio right now, I'd certainly be open to it. I still feel 2 years after we started doing this that there's a lot of potential here, and we'll see what we can arrange. I mean, I'm sending out emails and trying to make contacts and stuff like that, but it's hard to get anything on anything. It's not as easy as you think. So we'll see what we can do. But like I said, for now, let's say it's the last Wrestling Roundtable radio show. I'm the host, Eric Santamaria, and lots of people are already calling in. That's nice to see. Nice of you to turn out on the last show, I guess. But I hope you enjoy. We got a lot lined up, and right now on the panel anyway, we've got the only other panelist who gives a shit about this show. That's a big reason why it's ending, incidentally. But someone who's always there, Will effin' Brooks. You would be in the chat room along with myself, but that's not working. It's always something. Something weird's going on with our website. Hopefully I can figure that out. It only started fucking happening a little while ago before we went on there, so no chat room tonight, it looks like. If things change, keep me updated on Facebook or whatever. But right now, Will Brooks, you are on as you always are, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure everyone else does too.
Wow, 50 episodes, 2 years of my Tuesday nights. It's going to be weird, man. I actually have free time on Tuesday nights. What's on TV on Tuesday nights anyway? I don't even know. I don't know what to watch.
Well, you could always watch episodes of the Wrestling Roundtable because there's certainly ones for you to check out now. We're actually going to be doing a big follow-up. Tonight, the theme is we're not going to bring back a bunch of old fucking names who are going to come out of the woodwork just because it's the last show. Hey, they didn't give a fuck all this time. I'm not going to put them on now because you, listening right now, are the people I care about. The people who call in from across the country, even people who stay up in fucking Europe at ungodly hours of the morning like it is now to listen to this show, even if you're listening after the fact on YouTube. It's going to be about you, the fans, tonight, and I'll be a little selfish, sure. I'm not going to go so gracefully. I've got a lot to say, and that's a big reason why we have this time slot. Now, what I was alluding to as far as it being the last show, look, I've got a few ideas. Even if it doesn't get to the next level like I hope, still might do some things here and there, maybe some interview specials and things like that, but the standard Blog Talk account, only half an hour, I could fill that just by myself on one subject. So you know how much I like to talk, and I'm glad you've all enjoyed it if you've stuck with the show. And I do appreciate, like I said, all the fans who do call in. And actually I wanted to start with a fan because Frank from Tacoma, Washington, you are on right now. You were the one who sent me the message on YouTube, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, do you want to elaborate on that? Because I was planning on actually reading it. Because it's a big reason, the sentiments in there of why I had reservations about not doing the show anymore, at least to this degree, because, I mean, I do want to please the audience. I do want to keep doing this sort of thing, but it's just not becoming the greatest thing in my schedule, and it's a lot of work, and it's not as much payoff as I would have hoped. So I didn't want to let down the fans, that's for sure, and I wanted to keep doing it because as it's on the air, I enjoy it. Hell, even going on there just now, I still get the Showtime nerves. It's like I've done this, I'm in control. Why am I nervous? My body just reacts that way. It's part of show business, I guess. And I remember, I think it was even Shawn Michaels who said, if you're behind the curtain and you aren't getting butterflies, you're not doing it right anymore. And, I mean, it's kind of like the same feeling I had going into the Hammerstein Ballroom last year in June. I mean, a room full of ROH fans who hate my fucking guts just for existing, and I had to go do the pre-show with Kevin Kelly before pay-per-view and got through it, and I just always get that sort of reaction. So even now, I do enjoy the show. It's just becoming a little too much. I didn't want to disappoint the fans, like I said, but I was going to read your email, but I saw that you called in, so I thought I'd put you on and see if you wanted maybe to verbalize it yourself.
It was incredibly long, but to sum it up, I barely stumbled onto you guys about half a year ago, and I was just captivated by the thoughts of maybe even the panelists that are long gone by now, but it was just interesting because I've been extremely disfranchised for half a decade from wrestling, and just listening to you guys kind of brought it back to me. And like I had said before on the SEG years video, you guys made me a UFC fan, or MMA fan in general. And I guess as a direct result of you guys, I parted ways with about $50 this past Saturday to watch JDS put it on Frank Mir. It really does mean a lot to us out here to have to listen to a bunch of bullshit like Meltzer, have to read a bunch of the dirt sheets that redirect you to endless links. And it's just nice for a change to get the truth, get some non-bullshit. And like I had said in the note, I went back and I listened to every radio show, and I encourage everybody to do so, because so many things I didn't know. I had no idea what the Ringmaster character was for Stone Cold, just as a reference for a recent video, the Stone Cold video. And just everything you guys have done, I really do appreciate it. I'm sure all of us do on the line too. And just wanted to let you know about that.
That means a lot to me. I really appreciate that, Frank. And since you mentioned the UFC pay-per-view, you want to come back on for that and talk about it with me?
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right. Well, Brooks and I will be covering that a little bit later, but now that you mention the archive, because I wanted to definitely plug that. First of all, when we're not doing this show regularly or maybe at all, whatever, we'll figure that out soon. But my point on this one is the shows aren't going anywhere. The archives are going to stay up, regardless of fucking Google and YouTube destroying what they've created and what I've worked hard to create over the past 4 years, deleting accounts and subscribers going out the fucking window the past few months, and views being affected by it too. I'm certainly not the only one. Every other director and partner account has been flipping out just like I have. But regardless, that archive will still be there. We're on Go Fight Live. We're on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio. All that stuff is going to stay there. 50, this being the 50th, 50 shows, and 62 video shows, all of them are going to be there along with our blogs and matches. That's another thing. Been uploading a lot of matches with the American Psycho Alex Payne lately, courtesy of Jawbreaker Productions in conjunction with NWA Force One, of course. And there's more to come. More matches will be coming your way. If you don't really care about watching the wrestling and want to hear us talk about wrestling, we've got shows 61 and 62 on YouTube, Go Fight Live, Blog Talk Radio, and iTunes in full right now. So check those out when you get the chance. But so many things I hear all the time echo your sentiments there, Frank, and I really appreciate that, whether you've stuck with us for all the years that you have or you're new to the game. Like I said, the archive is there, so don't be hesitant. And I'm very glad, especially because our panelist, Martin LeConte, who's been on since Season 1, since Show 1, he's going to be making his amateur MMA debut in just a few days. This Friday at Jackson, New Jersey's Liberty High School. He will be competing at 135 under amateur rules for Crush Promotions' first event. So looking forward to that, and I know I force-feed MMA to some people, and what I wanted to get across with this show, too, when we started dabbling in it, of course, much like pro wrestling fans did themselves when ordering pay-per-views, we used Brock Lesnar as the gateway here to lure wrestling fans in, and we're MMA fans anyway, so we just dipped our toe in the water at first with that and then decided to go full bore. And I know there's some wrestling fans who don't give a fuck, but as you have opened your mind to that, as you didn't initially, I know you said you went through the shows like 3 times, which is awesome, and incrementally listening to more and more portions you skipped over initially, right, you became an MMA fan. And that's really special to me because I really think it's amazing that we live in the time that you can look back on probably years from now and say this was the beginning of the sport. This was where MMA became what it is now and started growing from practically nothing. So I think it's really cool for us to experience that in person, and I am very much an advocate of spreading the word of MMA, and I take pride in the fact that I thought we did some good coverage of it too. But It's funny you mentioned Meltzer and that sort of shit, because a little tidbit I'll give up as far as the origins of Roundtable. What's funny is I've alluded to in the past that I've worked in pro wrestling for, almost 8 years later this year. And when we had the idea years ago to start the Wrestling Roundtable, and it was a lot of different factors that went into it. It was just perfect timing, really. But I didn't tell anybody in wrestling that I was going to start this, because I knew our first show was going to be about Chris Benoit, and he who we do not speak of, and all the baggage that brought with it, because it was a very hot topic in 2007, of course. And then I decided to couple that with the other controversial topic, WCW, and whether they made stars or not. So I thought that's a good start for this series. Very controversial subjects right there. We're not afraid to tackle that, because I thought it's a radical idea. But what if we interject some truth into this? Because I'd seen over the years, behind the scenes, in front of the camera, behind the curtain, et cetera, how shit really goes down. And I'm a very big advocate of telling the truth. And I hate lies, hate bullshit. And that's what wrestling and a lot of other industries are built on, no less. But I just thought, let's get to the bottom of it and tell people how it really is, at least as far as we can interpret. We do our best to tell accurate stories and thoughts and opinions as much as we can. But I didn't tell anybody in pro wrestling that I was doing this, because I figured, man, if they knew that I was going to do a show where I talk about steroids and make terrible, tasteless jokes and all this other stuff, they probably wouldn't want me to do it. And what's been really surprising is how much, you've probably heard it on the last show, anytime a wrestler or someone in the business comes on the show, and we've got a lot of MMA-related followers on Twitter, too, surprisingly enough. But anytime the professionals, so to speak, do that sort of thing, come on the show, compliment the show, it's such a huge pat on my back, or a feather in my cap, because it means a lot for me, being that we don't sugarcoat shit. Because you know how much shit's swept under the rug and kept behind the curtain to protect the business and all that shit. But I've always made the case, pro wrestling's worst enemy is pro wrestling. I don't want to put blame on the media and the government or non-fans or whatever the fuck. You clean yourself up. That's your responsibility. And in a lot of cases, they don't. So the fact that so many people that I work with, people that I've heard from, have said they enjoy the show means a lot to me. So starting off with MMA, recently Strikeforce had their finals of the Heavyweight World Grand Prix. Finally, it took over a year to get it done. And on Saturday, May 19th, from San Jose, California's HP Pavilion, I was very shocked, really, that Gilbert Melendez kept his lightweight title, that's 155, against Josh Thompson in their third bout, because even though it was a split decision and very close by the judges' standing, I really thought that we were going to hear and knew a lightweight champion, but that was not the case. However, I was almost equally surprised, and you often, if you listen to this show, hear me refer to Strikeforce as the TNA of MMA, and I mean that they have a great roster for the most part. Well, maybe not at the moment, but they end up delivering good fights on their shows. But it's the booking around it that is so stupid. That's why I labeled them the TNA, and really, under the Zuffa ownership, they're so really hands-off about it that it really hasn't changed. And here's a for instance. So Daniel Cormier, the dark horse of, and that's not a racist joke, but the dark horse of the tournament, replaces Alistair Overeem, of course, after he got fired from Strikeforce and vacated the belt. And he not only goes on to beat Bigfoot Silva, he beats Josh Barnett, former UFC heavyweight champion, and there was one judge who scored one round in Josh Barnett's favor out of all five. Everyone else was 50-45, and one judge gave one round to Daniel Cormier. It doesn't change the fact that it was still a unanimous decision, but I was like, really? If Barnett won any round, it would have been the first, and just barely by maybe a couple strikes. And I probably wouldn't have even gone that far. But as it is, Daniel Cormier, what a great success story here. He beats Josh Barnett, the veteran, who really seems right now in a similar position as Frank Mir, as we'll get to later on in terms of his career in the mixed martial arts. But Daniel Cormier not only wins the Heavyweight Grand Prix, this was, as far as I know, completely unadvertised, And surprising to me to see that right at the end, they put a belt on him. And he's new heavyweight champion. Whoa, 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 whoa. I thought that Overeem had vacated the belt and they weren't planning on crowning a new champion at all. We didn't find this out till the match was already over, and now he's the new Strikeforce heavyweight champion. Gee, you think that would have helped sell the show if they had advertised ahead of time, hey, there's going to be a new heavyweight champion crowned? I mean, granted, they're only going to have one more fight in Strikeforce for who knows what reason. Even Josh Barnett said he'll fight again. Again, for what reason? I mean, the finals between Cormier and Barnett, that was the whole division. Everyone else is either already in UFC or on the way. So I really have no idea what they're going to do with Daniel Cormier, who's already talking about jumping to UFC because you know he's going to end up there eventually. So what the fuck? What was the point of that? Are they going to bring in some fucking name out of left field for some sort of one-off freak show sort of heavyweight title fight before they bring him over? I don't know. But either way, Daniel Cormier looked great, and he'd be a great addition to the heavyweight division. And the heavyweight division in UFC was what this pay-per-view 146 on Saturday was all about from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Now, before we get to the main pay-per-view, though, Will, you wanted to mention some things about the prelims because, first of all, Dan Hardy did not lose this time. He got a nice knockout, and it was a big change of pace for him because I think he hasn't won a match in years. He would have been on a 5-fight losing streak here, and if he wasn't British, he would have been out on his ass a long time ago. No one racks up that many losses in a row and stays under contract, but you know they want to keep their draws from specialty countries like UK, but at least he got a win here. And you also wanted to mention something about Jason Mayhem Miller, who not only got fired after his really shitty performance against CB Dalloway, looking just as sluggish, unenthused, and unmotivated as he did in his return fight against Michael Bisping a little while ago. 2 shitty performances in a row, and he said if he didn't do well, he would quit. Not only did he get fired from UFC, apparently, he also said he's retired, quote-unquote, for now, just like Wrestling Roundtable Radio, for now. So I don't know if that's going to stick, but real disappointing turn for Jason Mayhem Miller because I thought he was likable, but this run just really sucked, and the boos from the crowd during the CB Dalloway prelim fight really echoed that. So what are your thoughts on the prelims?
Well, again, like I was telling you, I like Mayhem Miller. I really do. I thought he was a good, solid all-around fighter who's got a lot of personality. The kind of guy, if he had been winning, the UFC would have taken advantage of that. But yeah, it's like last couple fights, it was like, dude, who the hell are you? You're not Mayhem. Mayhem actually was good. Mayhem actually threw punches and landed them. You suck. It was kind of disappointing, especially now that he's retiring. But he still got that MTV gig to fall back on. But Dan Hardy, I went to the UFC 114 when he faced GSP for the title, and GSP completely owned him for 5 rounds. He just played with him after a while. It was kind of like, I think GSP could have ended the fight in the second round if he wanted to. I think he had too much fun kicking his ass because all that shit Dan Hardy was talking. I don't think Dan Hardy's really won since then until tonight.
Yep.
So Dan Hardy, good way to save your job, but it's just like you said, if he wasn't British, his ass would have been gone a year ago.
I was also very happy that Mike Brown got another win, like Mike Brown on the prelims. But on the main card, this was essentially Night of the Heavyweights, as I keep calling it. Luckily, though, the fights, yes, being that they were heavyweight fights, all went quickly. Only 2 went into the second round, and some of them ended within a minute or so. The Stefan Struve opener against LeVar Johnson, who was a last-minute replacement, of course, went 1 minute and 5 seconds before Struve locked in an armbar and got the submission. But Johnson, not going to be too damaged about this, I don't think. He was a last-minute replacement. And Struve fighting a guy pretty much on his level, about a mid-card heavyweight, if you'd like, because guys like him, guys like Pat Barry, likable, you want to see him do good, and you see spurts, but then they have a loss, win-loss, and they just go up and down, and they don't really seem to progress beyond that. But he's still young, and he definitely needed a win here. So what are your thoughts on Struve arm-barring the guy who looks like The Rock?
Well, Stefan Struve kind of reminds me of The Undertaker. That actually kind of works. But Stefan Struve, I like Stefan Struve. It's nice seeing a 6'11" guy, but the fact of the matter is that he's 6'11" and he weighs 238 pounds. I'm like 5'9", and I weigh like a $190. This guy weighs 40 more pounds than me, but he has me by a foot and 2 inches. No wonder this guy's too lanky. He needs to put some muscle on or something.
Maybe you should call up Overeem.
You know, he needs to get on that Frank Mir diet.
Frank, what do you think?
Johnson's arm looked broken to me, so you got the job done pretty good.
Well, someone else who got the job done was Roy Nelson. Again, much needed, I would think, is Michael Cole would say this was vintage Roy Nelson. Dave Pee Wee Herman's probably going to be out of a job, but it was a classic Roy Nelson right hook. Bam! Less than a minute. First round knockout. Will Brooks, your thoughts?
I love Roy Nelson, so it's good for me to see Big Country knock somebody out again. Now I'm hearing rumors about him and Carwin again. I'm like, wasn't that fight supposed to happen 2 years ago?
It's funny you mentioned Carwin because I know he's been injured a lot, very banged up and recovering, herniated discs in his back, etc. But he's someone we haven't heard about in a while.
Last time we saw Carwin, he was getting beat up. He looked anorexic and was getting beat up by JDS before JDS got the title shot. But Carwin, I remember Carwin was supposed to get a piece of Roy Nelson right after he lost the block, and it just never happened because he got injured. And Roy Nelson started kicking everybody's ass again. I hope that fight happens now. I'd love to see that fight. That'd be a cool fight.
What do you think, Frank?
That knockout came out of nowhere, and I swear to God, I was looking down, taking a bite out of my steak. I looked up. Nelson was standing over Herman. I missed the goddamn knockout, but I got it on the replay. Man, Big Country's looking good.
The perils of watching MMA. It's always you look at your phone, you look down at your food, and then bam, you miss something. That's why we need a lot more of those replays than we see. But I do miss Roy Nelson coming out fat. That was very enjoyable when he would do that. But Cain Velasquez against Bigfoot Silva. Now, of course, his original opponent was Frank Mir, and because Overeem, who was JDS's original opponent, got suspended for that absurd 14-to-1 testosterone to epitestosterone ratio, he'll have to reapply in December now, which, yeah, sucks, but they had to do what they had to do. I was just really looking forward to that fight. But between the two, I think Frank Mir earned it a little more because he's had 3 or so victories in a row. So I understand him being bumped up. And I think Antonio Bigfoot Silva was a proper replacement for him in the sense that he and Velasquez were both coming off big losses. Of course, Velasquez losing the title to JDS in a little over a minute. I think it was 64 seconds on Fox at the end of last year. And Bigfoot, like I mentioned earlier, losing to Daniel Cormier in the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. So both coming off losses, and holy fuck. Welcome to UFC, Bigfoot. Cain just fucked him up. It was a gusher. For wrestling fans, picture, I would guess, Austin at WrestleMania 13. Velasquez took him down and just unloaded elbows like Brock Cena style at Extreme Rules and opened up a big gusher near the top of Bigfoot's eye, and it looked like a faucet. The doctor stopped it, took a look, cleaned it up, looked like he was having a hard time seeing, and they let it keep going. Didn't really matter because just a little while after that, TKO, they stopped it, and Velasquez comes off a win, and it seems like anybody who goes against Bigfoot now just breaks their hand on his fucking cement head with that giant chin like Cormier did when he fought him too. It's like punching a concrete wall with that giant head. But Velasquez is going to be out a little while, I think about 6 months now. But hey, he looked real good. It just sucks for him to suffer an injury after he healed up. So what do you think about Cain and how he looked on the rebound, Will Brooks?
I thought he looked like phenomenal. Like this is the Cain Velasquez I remember. The guy who kicked Brock Lesnar's ass. Guy who was unfazed, took his time, really made things work, really knew what he was doing. And his punches and his elbows were very crisp, on the mark, very accurate. And it's just like, damn it, he got injured again? Fuck. And the one good thing about this, though, his cardio, even though it's phenomenal, it's going to get better now because all he's going to be able to do is one.
Frank?
It was not even remotely competitive. I mean, I can't believe they even let it go because Silva gives up his bag after they stopped the fight, and then he just started pounding away again. They're both still in bed, probably. They're still fucked up.
Well, someone else who's fucked up now is Frank Mir, and I don't know about anybody else, but I alluded to Josh Barnett, and when Josh Barnett lost the heavyweight Grand Prix to Daniel Cormier, of course he's got a very topsy-turvy relationship with not only athletic commissions, but the UFC because of it. So I was thinking, man, Barnett wins. Is this a lock that he's going to be brought over or not? And either way, I felt like this was like Barnett's last chance at glory, so to speak. I mean, he's alluded to, maybe I'll do the King Mo deal where I'll wrestle for TNA and or somebody else. Like, I mean, he does it with Inoki already, which is funny because on that MMA Uncensored show on Spike TV that comes on after Impact Wrestling, when they had King Mo, Bjorn Rebney, who's the CEO of Bellator, and Dixie Carter on that show, the host, Craig Carton, is hyping it like, I'm sure he's just reading what they were telling him to and trying to hype it up, but this is the first time this has ever happened that someone's been wrestling and fighting at the same time, which is so outrageously untrue, even for TNA. I mean, how long ago was Bobby Lashley now? Not that long ago. But alluding to Josh Barnett, he wrestles for Inoki over at IGF whenever he can, and Inoki uses a ton of people like that, like Lashley, Bob Sapp, lots of K1 fighters, etc. So, I mean, just in that one promotion alone, which happens right now, that's just absurd to say. But being that that's what Josh Barnett kind of does, I was thinking, man, this is like his real last shot of glory, last shot of getting into UFC, and when it didn't happen, I was like, I really don't know if it's going to happen anymore. Frank Mir at the post-fight press conference was a lot more optimistic than we are, I suppose, and I just presume everyone feels the same way here. But when Frank Mir lost to Junior Dos Santos, which even according to our poll results, everyone expected. Hell, the group I was watching it with, the dog correctly predicted Junior Dos Santos, and I knew that dog was right because JDS was my pick too. But after Frank Mir lost, I'm like, I don't think we're going to see Frank Mir ever contend for a title again. And that sucks, of course. He had a chance to set a record of most heavyweight title wins in UFC history here, and he's got a pretty great legacy in UFC as it is. But his strategy went out the window real quick. Clearly, he did not want to stand with Junior Dos Santos, at least at first. He tried taking him down, and JDS, even when he got out of that and Mir was trying to grab onto his ankle and bring him down, JDS waves his finger, nope, nope, nope. He knew what he was going to do because Frank Mir's best bet was on his back, or on the ground at least. And it did not turn out that way at all. Junior Dos Santos just pummeled this guy's face. When the referee waved it off, it was even probably a little late, too, on that one. But JDS, in a great story, bringing the poor kid who lives in a shack from Brazil but visits the school he trains at, or the training center he trains at, and just wanted to go to America, it was pretty sweet, very nice. Junior Dos Santos, of course, getting booed when he came out because it was Las Vegas, Frank Mir's hometown, but Vegas turned on him. He was getting booed after the fight, and sucks for him, but I don't know how anybody could boo Junior Dos Santos because he just seems like the nicest guy, and he's on such a fucking hot streak. He looks so great in the cage, and his first title defense is under his belt. So what's your impression, Will?
I like JDS a lot, and I knew he was going to win, so it wasn't like a big shock to me, but you said it was shocking that Frank Mir stood with him. Not really. I mean, Frank Mir does have good boxing, and, I mean, it's not the same level as JDS, but I think he was at least going to try. I think his game plan was at least try to stand with him, see if you can hang, see if you land anything, and then, if need be, take it down. And of course, JDS just unloaded on him. He landed like 30 more punches than he did. I wasn't shocked that JDS won, and then I was shocked that Frank Mir tried to test his stand-up, but at the same time, we all know what was going to happen, and it did.
I was surprised in the sense that I rewatched the Big Nog fight, and Big Nog was really unloading on him, and it just reminded me of how Brock Lesnar put him down, too. So it seemed like it was not that unfeasible for him to be put down by someone with great stand-up, and you had to expect that from Junior Dos Santos. So what'd you think, Frank?
I thought it was a good fight. I mean, if anything, it was a showcase fight for JDS. And for those who say that MMA fighters can't stand with boxers, I mean, show them this guy. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the last hammer fist that he got in. Perhaps a cheap shot, but it was a good fight.
Right now we've got Jake the Manscout Manning on the line, but before we get to him, I wanted to read you the poll results of our latest polls that we had on WrestlingRoundtable.com. At least those were working. The first one, speaking of MMA, was what super fight would you want to see the most? And only 1% of the vote went to flyweight Ian McCall and heavyweight Stefan Struve. What? You don't want to see a freak show, old Pride or early UFC style like that? 6'11" heavyweight Struve against a 125-pound guy? Come on, only 1%. Oh well, some of the more serious and realistic ones follow. 3%, only 3. This has kind of fallen off the radar since she got suspended, but let's see if it comes back later in the year. Christian Cyborg Santos and Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey, of course, the Strikeforce women's bantamweight champion, and talking shit as soon as Cyborg got suspended and said, you just wait a year. I would love to see that fight. 4% went to Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar, once again proving neither man is a draw. All right, but really it would be a fucking great fight no matter what weight class either one happens to be at the time. They were kind of pushing for that recently, but Edgar wanted his rematch against Ben Henderson, and hopefully Henderson wins that one too. 9% went to John Jones and Junior Dos Santos. Now, why that? Well, everyone's talking about John Jones moving up to heavyweight eventually, and I was like, well, why not put him against the top one right now? 9% also, this is a tie with the previous JDS, John Jones. 9% went to, still, people would like to see this, and I would too, especially if it was on the fucking Comeback Ultimate Fighter season they're planning next, Randy Couture and Fedor Emelianenko. Now, of course, Couture is retired, going to star in the Expendables 2 coming up, which I can't wait to see. Maybe he could be coaxed out of retirement for one more time against Fedor, but unfortunately it looks like Fedor is going to retire against Pedro Hizzo, of all people, in Russia before that happens. And it's really a shame, even if Fedor's really fallen off the radar in the past couple years and really lost his unbeatable aura, that A, people forget how dominant of a heavyweight he really was, one of the best of all time, and 2, that we never got to see him in UFC even just once. Fuck you, M1. 29% in second place went to Anderson Silva and John Jones. Hoo. Bones and the Spider. Holy shit. That would be something. Probably not going to happen, though, because more likely than that, I would think, is number one by a huge number. 45% of you still want to see Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre. We'll see if we can squeeze that one in before Anderson Silva retires. And the other poll was who should be in TNA's Gut Check segment, which is a concept I really like and hope it leads to some more people getting on TV. And, of course, when Alex Silva showed up the first time, everyone's like, it's just going to be OVW people. But then Joey Ryan shows up, and no, they're going to bring all the Ring Ka King people over, apparently. So expect Chris Masters sometime, who knows. TNA's Gut Check segment, I think, is an awesome idea. And only 1% of you, though, voted for Kikutaro. I was trying to think of someone foreign because, I mean, with Alex Silva, this is such a stupid story, which is, and this is internet rumor, that Flair voted out of the script and voted for Alex Silva, and now they're like, we got to sign him and get a visa and whatever. And I was like, what? How are they possibly complaining about getting someone a visa from Canada or whatever? Shouldn't you have been prepared for that possibility? What the fuck? And then I tweeted to Al Snow if what Eric Bischoff alluded to in an interview was that this isn't going to be OVW only, this is going to be more than just that, Al Snow's in charge. I asked him if that was true, and he said, yeah. Just 4 letters, yeah. So, I mean, if we could see someone from Japan and Mexico, that would be awesome, but maybe we can't get votes for them because then we have to pay for their visa. So I thought Kikutaro, maybe the most likely out of anybody. But anyway, 7% moving on up went to Grizzly Redwood. Grizzly Redwood, hopefully a regular now on Wrestling Roundtable. We'll be talking to his tag partner in a minute. 11% went to Jack Evans. And I put him on the list because he had that 4-way tryout essentially a little while ago and always been a Jack Evans fan. Let's see if we can get him out of Mexico for a TNA contract. Probably not, but worth a shot. 12% moving on up went to Sarah Del Rey, one of the probably biggest unsigned women wrestlers on the indies right now, so people would enjoy that. 19% went to El Generico. And number one by a huge margin, someone I keep pushing for on Twitter to be the person to get the Gut Check challenge, Colt Cabana, 50%. So that would be pretty awesome. And someone who is awesome, at least in my opinion, is Jake the Manscout Manning. We are moving on now to follow up on some of our latest shows, and I know a lot of you are on the line, so we will be getting to you after we get to Jake. And if you want to talk about Over the Limit, Raw, SmackDown, Border Wars, if you saw it, TNA, or anything else going on in Pro Wrestling or MMA, feel free. But you're going to have to wait for Jake to finish up because Jake Manning, you are on the line. Hey, Jake.
Hey, Eric. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
No problem, Jake. I've been wanting to get you on for a while because we've had so many great times hanging out on the road and talking about this industry, this whacked-out, crazy industry that we're a part of, and wanted to get you on. We've had your tag partner, Grizzly Redwood. You guys are teaming up lately as the Great Outdoors.
Yes, that is correct.
And now the circle is complete because we got the other half on. And I thought it was appropriate to bring you on our follow-up on independent wrestling because who would know independent wrestling better than you? You know every aspect of it, from whether it's in the office, behind a camera, in the ring, on the road, in a truck. There's nothing you don't know.
There is one thing I don't know. I've never sold popcorn before, so if I could ever figure out how to do that, then I would know everything. But I don't know quite everything yet. So.
Well, T-shirts, popcorn, close enough.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, because some of our listeners may not exactly be familiar with you just yet. I know you just debuted in Evolve. You wrestled some Ring of Honor matches before, but maybe they haven't seen you on some of their indies because you've been up and down and across the border all over. So if they're not familiar with you, how did you become a wrestling fan?
I think I've always been a wrestling fan. I mean, like everybody of my generation, it was always the Saturday night main events. For me, it was a little difficult finding wrestling because I lived in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, so it's not like, I talk to these people who lived in Chicago who got World Class, and they got ECW and all these other local indies that had cable access or whatever, or WWE or NWA or all that. All I had were the 3 channels, and the only wrestling I ever saw growing up was those old WWF Superstar shows that were syndicated. And then, of course, my channel got cheap, and then they didn't want to pay for those anymore. So there was like a 2 or 3 year window where I didn't get any wrestling at all. And this is pre-internet, pre-everything. And, I wouldn't see wrestling magazines. I wouldn't see anything wrestling-related whatsoever for probably another 2 or 3 years until I got cable TV when I was 13. But I always loved it. It's what I always wanted to do. And to me, these guys were larger than life, and I thought everybody was 6'5", 260 pounds, and I thought there was no possible way I would ever do this, ever, because I figured you have to be a giant, and I was 5'11", maybe 200 pounds most of my life. And then, of course, I believe it was Royal Rumble 2003, Kurt Angle and He Who We Shall Not Speak Of.
Correct.
And that was, here's these guys getting a standing ovation, and they're roughly about my size. So that was, I think, that was the match that made me realize maybe I could possibly do this, or maybe there's a way in some way, some fashion. And I thought of wrestling, and to me, these guys were larger than life, and wrestling was such a non-attainable thing, because I talked to guys that grew up in the Northeast and they went to indie shows when they were 8. I didn't know indie wrestling existed till like 2001, post ECW era. And you
got in at a good time though.
Yeah, but I was probably about 2 years late from getting into the really, really good stuff. Like I think the whole era of the early Cabanas and Punks and Heroes and Bryan Danielson. Like I really think I missed out because I got in about 03, 04, where those guys were finally starting to figure something out and get some notoriety going. So it was very hard that way to kind of break through because those guys are getting traction, and those are the hot indie guys, which some of them are the hot indie guys even still today, like the Low Keys and everything else. But yeah, I mean I got in a pretty decent time, but kind of like the end of that window, but I didn't know indie wrestling existed. That's the thing that just blew my mind. I thought there would be no possible way. So my goal was always to do whatever, because I didn't know if I'd be able to get in at all. So I took broadcasting classes because maybe I can work as a camera guy for WWE, or maybe I can work as an editor, or whatever else. So whatever I thought would help me in pro wrestling, I did. I did improv for like a semester in college, whatever I possibly thought could help me to get into pro wrestling, even if it was selling programs or merchandise or whatever. And that's kind of, I guess, that mentality has made me into what I do today, and a jack of all trades, except selling popcorn, of course.
It'll come eventually. But
someday. It'll come down to that where it's, we let them wrestle or sell popcorn.
Someone's going to dangle a carrot in front of your face like, hey, we'll put you back in the Ring of Honor TV show if you sell some popcorn. Hey, you sell some tickets. That's what they do now anyway. But you did end up in wrestling anyway. If there's a will, there's a way, and you did make it into pro wrestling. So how'd you break in? Doing random Google searches, and I found one place that had a very nice website, a very nice setup, a very nice presentation online, and it was in Springfield, and I was going to school in Macomb. This was shortly after my track career ended. My uncle was a world record holder in the shot put, and was a real innovator of that sport, and I thought that was going to be my sport, but I never ended up 6'5", 300 pounds, bench pressing over 5,000, clean and jerking over 450 pounds. I never quite attained that. So once I hung up my shot putting shoes and decided to, look around and see what wrestling was out there, and I found like this indie group that was like an hour and a half away from where I worked at the time in this college town, and I spent a whole year preparing for it because I thought it was it's going to be the hardest thing ever. These guys are like undiscovered talent, and they're going to be on Vince McMahon's TV in a year. Well, I get there, and wasn't quite what I expected, but it was a nice little start, a nice way to get my kind of toe dipped in the water. But it was one of those groups that you see that they run once a month. It's the same people all the time. But they don't travel anywhere else. Those people are happy doing the once-a-month shows that they do, and they like being a local celebrity, and that's about it. And to them, driving 2 hours to a show is, oh gosh, it's 2 hours away. Or to me, like if you read the wrestling books, you hear the guys talk about 6-hour drives, 500 miles, all over the place. That's what you're supposed to do as a wrestler. So from that, then I started to network a little bit and kind of worked my way into some of the Ian Rotten shows that were being run in Iowa there for a short period of time, and then it wasn't until old Colt Cabana had a conversation with me for 45 minutes, which led me to the East Coast. Great, and I kind of know the answer to this, but I want to set it up for the people. How did you come about the Manscout gimmick? Because it's certainly, I would say, unique in wrestling. I don't remember ever seeing a grown man coming out in a Boy Scout uniform and doing the salute and everything. So where did that come from? That's kind of exactly right. I mean, everybody has a way to stick out. It just mine happened to be more creative. Most guys are like, oh, I'm going to wear a robe, or I'll do this, or I'll dye my hair, But me, I actually am an Eagle Scout, and I'm very proud of that fact. And I'm very open about it, and I feel like it was a big part of my life, and I'm very proud of that. I grew up with the characters. Like, people thought the era of Skip, Chris Candido coming out there and doing jumping jacks, and even ridiculous ones of T.L. Hopper and the Goon, and even Jean-Pierre Lafitte, Isaac Yankem. And I just finally got back into discovering wrestling again when we got cable TV, and I thought all that stuff was great. I always loved that, like Jake the Snake, and even like Doink the Clown was fun for what it was. Everybody had kind of something, and the characters were whatever, but you stood out. And I don't think I really fully understood that, but I knew I had to be different somehow, and I was an Eagle Scout, and I had all these wonderful uniforms and badges and canteens, and I was like, oh, I could do this and this and this, and then I pitched it to the place I was wrestling, which was still that once-a-month place, and they thought it was the dumbest idea ever. And they looked at me like I was an idiot, and they told me, no, you are going to be called Mr. Elite, and you will be a Mr. Perfect knockoff. That's what's going to be you. That's who you are. And I was that, and made it work as long as I could. It's kind of hard to be just Mr. Elite without a name. I wasn't like Mr. Elite Jake Manning. I was just Mr. Elite, and it just really was what it was. And then I, out of the blue, just hadn't thought about it. I kind of put it away on the shelf for years because I thought it was dumb, and
I finally got an actual name and called myself Jake Manning, but Jake Manning just was Jake Manning. I mean, it had no fizz to it. And I remember a conversation that I had with Bill DeMont. I remember him being booked at one of the local shows. I remember asking him, what's it going to take to get noticed, or how you get going? And he goes, you got to find something to be different than everybody else. And slowly the light bulb sort of come in my head, and started thinking about the Manscout, and I was like, well, it's kind of funny. So I tried it at a fair show, which most of these people are riding the Ferris wheel, or they're playing games or whatever. They're not paying attention to the wrestling. So
my favorite is JPW on the boardwalk, where you can see the Ferris wheels in the background and stuff. That
would be probably much more scenic than the I believe the Shenandoah County Fair. I mean, next to the guy who's selling illegal fireworks down in this little valley where people are swimming in a swimming pool just over yonder in like the jeans instead of like swim trunks. They have jeans, and that's what they're swimming in.
Oh my God!
Yeah, that's where I was. So I was like,
that's like wrestling in jeans.
Yeah, pretty. It's just as ridiculous. But I was like, well, we'll try it here and see if it works. And before I ever locked up, the guy I wrestled goes, this is perfect. You need to do this all the time. And then, of course, it evolved and to what I do now. But I still don't think people get it. I think people, especially maybe in the Northeast or definitely the higher populated areas, don't get it because the whole gimmick is Cub Scout, Boy Scout, Man Scout. Well, if you just say he's the Man Scout, people like, he's scouting men? Like, they think there's this whole gay connotation to it. But it's Boy Scout camping.
And you are. It's just not part of your gimmick.
Exactly, yeah. I try and keep that on the D-Lo, so on the D-Lo Brown, that is. But anyways, it just, it wouldn't come across. But I think that's one of the nice things of teaming with the world's littlest lumberjack, Grizzly Redwood. When they see us together, like, oh, lumberjack. Manscout, like Boy Scout, and then it kind of clicks, where before when I was just Manscout, I think people thought I was looking for dudes. So I think that's why a lot of people like, we don't want a gay gimmick because it doesn't get any heat because everybody's gay nowadays. So it's dumb. So, but yeah, I just tried it and did it, and it's just all about just standing out. And like you said, you've never seen anybody like that before because so many times you go to an indie show, and it's like, what was your favorite match? Oh, I like the guy in the black trunks. It's bald. Which guy? The guy that wrestled the guy in the blue trunks? No, the other guy that was, that's all they think. Because half these sound systems indie shows are horrible. But the thing is, you always remember a guy coming out in a Boy Scout outfit at a wrestling show. Mm-hmm. Whether he had the best match, the worst match, or whatever, but you will always remember that guy. And that's half the battle, is being in the car ride home to those people. So whether they like you or they don't, and if you're matched up properly or whatever. But it's always something that gets a reaction, good, bad, or indifferent.
As long as it's nothing as generic as Dapper Johnny Falco, I'm happy.
Yes, exactly. I could wear kick pads and short trunks and do MMA kicks to people.
In vogue.
Yes.
But you mentioned Grizzly Redwood, and one of the places you guys wrestled together is PWX. And I was very intrigued when we started finding out about this a little while ago. I kind of joked on Twitter that it was the new Pro Wrestling Respect because it seemed to me a lot of the same cast of characters. And speaking of Pro Wrestling Respect, not only is it available to download digitally on GFL.TV, you can also get it on High Spots. So there's multiple ways you can download Pro Wrestling Respect shows and see the co-production of the ROH Wrestling Academy and the Wrestling Roundtable that we did a couple of years ago already. But I said that PWX used a lot of the same characters or the same wrestlers. I love the idea of giving the people who really work hard and deserve a shot that they really don't get elsewhere, especially where they should, a chance to be in a bigger spot. Maybe it's not as spotlighted as or have a big audience as Ring of Honor does, but it's good for them to be able to get into the ring with Roderick Strong and not be a 1-minute squash for, quote, TV. And that's a big part of PWX, so why don't you tell us a little bit about High Spots promotion PWX, because you're a big part of that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, and I remember, through our talks, you talk about what Pro Wrestling Respect meant, and I've always agreed with that mission statement, and you hit the nail right on the head with describing it. It's taking guys that are the undercard of some place or the guys that are fighting to get on a show, but people know who they are, but they're regulars, guys that don't necessarily get a fair shake. And being on the road with you, I got to meet a lot of those guys, and even on a couple of these loops, I brought the ring as well. So, people like Right Leg, Andy Ridge, and Grizzly Redwood, the Bravados, guys like that. We're bringing in the ring. We're there before everybody else is, and then, we're hanging out, and we're still putting up the pipe and drape while everybody's wheeling their nice little bags in and just kind of sitting down and, having a sandwich while we're still working right up until bell time. And then sometimes their match gets scratched, and those things happen, or they do get to wrestle somebody, but it's only like 2 minutes. But how are these people supposed to get better? And it almost, also through High Spots, we purchased a lot of video libraries, and I look back, and one of the video libraries that we purchased was the IWA Mid-South library. And you start to look back at that, and I definitely don't want to put over Ian Rotten any more than he needs to be in this business. But what
I'm just surprised that it's revealed High Spots was the one who bought it. Now we know.
Yeah, well, I think everybody's bought it. If you have a cup of coffee and Ian Rotten needs some caffeine, I think you would own the IWA Mid-South Library.
Taco Bell, can I help you? I'll have IWA Mid-South's library for number one.
Exactly. But he had a very good idea of taking younger talent that probably hadn't been exposed to many other places. And like for example, before Punk ever went to Ring of Honor, he was a big deal in IWA Mid-South. He was their heavyweight champ, and same with Cabana and Hero, and a lot of those guys had opportunities there. And then, if somebody was hot, like even Davey Richards went through there kind of, before he kind of got the stuff going, but he was getting, matchups against Low-Key, and in some Armory in Indiana, people like Chuck Taylor, before he really got going, he was there. So you kind of look back and you look at all these people that really got very early in their career. Either they kind of got a little bit of notoriety. Even you look back, it was like Ricochet when he had like Cat Williams hair, getting an opportunity, and now he's one of the top 5 high flyers in the world. But
now he's pimping in Japan,
pretty much, doing the American hustle. But these people got opportunities there, but, with that being as erratic as it is, and IWA Mid-South being owned by somebody else, they run a show once every 2 years or whatever, there needs to be something like that out there to give the people like Rhett Titus is a perfect example. Rhett Titus is the heavyweight champion of PWX. Is he ready to be the Ring of Honor heavyweight champion? No. But how is he going to get experience wrestling at the top of a card somewhere? And FIP was kind of that way for Ring of Honor. If you look back at some of the older FIP titles, like the 06 or even 07 era, like a lot of what was going on then happened like in 09 and 2010, So a lot of things had to be tried, that way. If you're not going to get an opportunity at the top wrestling somewhere, you're never going to be ready when you're put in a high pressure situation like that. And that's, I think, a big thing why you don't see a lot of guys step up is because they just don't know. They just don't have the opportunity. But, someone like Rhett Titus has an opportunity to wrestle Roderick Strong on a show for 20 minutes. Someone like Cedric Alexander, who has a tremendous amount of ability and talent, but hasn't quite got probably maturity skills of, someone like Davey Richards or an Eddie Edwards, guys that have been around that can help them say, hey, this is what you need to do with your career. Because a lot of times that's how you get to get better. It is by wrestling better people, and then they take a liking to you. He's been very lucky in Ring of Honor, but, right now they're making other guys look good. They're not getting an opportunity to really shine. Caleb Connolly getting an opportunity to wrestle people like Eddie Edwards and anybody we bring in. If there's a name, it's going to go to Caleb Connolly, Cedric Alexander, Adam Page, Rhett Titus. Give these people an opportunity because they're a big deal down here, where if Caleb Connolly went somewhere else, he'd be getting beat in 4 minutes. He's not going to learn anything. Or me and Grizzly, getting to wrestle the Briscoes. If we wrestle the Briscoes at a TV taping, it's going to be 2 minutes. Simple as that. If we wrestle them in a New York show, we might get 4. We're just going to get killed, and then the crowd's going to be so Briscoes that it's ridiculous. But if you wrestle them down here where we've been established, just the team, we could wrestle a 15-minute match, and people could believe that we could beat the Briscoes. and that puts us in a situation of being a better tag team.
There was a problem with the chat room. I think that still exists, and Royce luckily pointed me in the direction of a thrown-together chat room where Unstable Comet said he saw a match where Manscout got flare chopped a few times and took a timeout, went to the outside, and grabbed his metal canteen, pressing against his chest to relieve the swelling. And he also had a scenario that you should have a anything goes match where you're brawling into the crowd and use a compass to get back to the ring. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I like that one. I'll have to remember that. But I know the exact match you're talking about on YouTube. It's the one where me and Joey Silva, who was a long-time tag team partner I had, versus Paul London and El Generico, which was
awesome.
Close to the end of a long relationship I had with Paul London as far as working relationship, not relationship in that terms, but because I was with him when we did a lot of the YouTube videos that became now infamous.
Right. We're going to move on in another couple minutes, but I wanted to ask you about your opinion on the indie scene today. We talked about this recently, but I brought it up on our latest show, and I just get the feeling that I alluded to what I call golden age of indies between like 2001 and 2006 or so. And it just seems to me like the crop of guys around right now don't have the same aura. Like some of my favorite indie guys were Low Key, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, guys around then. And when you went to these sort of shows that had the SATs and Red and the Briscoes and whatever doing this crazy shit that you'd never seen before and was certainly different than what you saw on TV, it was new, it was fresh, it was exciting, and it was a place to see that sort of stuff you couldn't see. And guys could really cut their teeth or rebuild themselves too, like Jerry Lynn and The Wall at one point. And it just doesn't seem to me like the indie scene is the same right now. It seems, I guess maybe people have the impression wrestling is in a rut, maybe creatively. I certainly feel wrestling has not benefited or been the same in a positive sense since the writing team that WWE installed in about 2000 or so, and I think TNA and ROH have just been copying that shit ever since, to no one's benefit. And I don't know if indie's the same way, but it just seems like everyone's doing pay-per-views and not doing anything too different from each other. I mean, like I said, I love Low Key, but doing the I'm going to revolutionize everything with my MMA style sort of shit, that was 10 years ago. Come on. It's nothing new. So what do you think about how indies are today? What's your view? Because you've got every goddamn weekend first-hand experience seeing this yourself in the ring, at the shows, all over the place. And what were or are some of your favorite indie matches and wrestlers, maybe some that you've been working with yourself?
I don't know if we're necessarily in a rut, but I think it's a situation where everybody's kind of seen everything, where I think, you're talking about that era, it was like I felt for a long time that it was like, if you were an American guy that did Japanese guys' moves, that's how you got over, because nobody's going to see that move from Kenta. Nobody's going to be in the Tokyo Dome to see that move, but you get to see it here in the Armory. So it was kind of like a, bargain bin way of seeing all your favorite Japanese moves. But at the same time too, it's like I think the thing that's never really changed, and I think the thing that really separates guys apart is perception and characters, and I don't mean like let's all put on Manscout outfits and stuff like that. But I mean, like you have to have like Sami Callihan. For the most part, he's one of the hot indie guys right now because he's completely uniquely different than everybody else. He is completely separate from. He's not like anybody else, But in ring wise, Sami's great. But there's probably hundreds of guys that are just as good as him, if not better. But they don't have that unique look or package about themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what it is. I think it doesn't. I think really, to be quite honest, the in-ring product means absolutely nothing. And that's it was something that struggled with me for a long time. And
see, I disagree with you there because I mean, if we want to go further back into indie history, what about Sabu? A lot of his aura and persona and reputation was based on a lot of the shit that he would do in the ring.
Yes, but you look back at some of the stuff he did, and Too Cold Scorpio could do all that high-flying move with more precision and probably crisper than he could.
He didn't use a chair.
Yeah, but see, it was that aura of danger. He was still doing high-flying moves, but it was the way he was presented as this Hannibal Lecter. Like, if he went out there and just did the moves, it wouldn't have got over as much. But it was him being on that gurney and him like scaring the shit out of people, and them showing videos of him nearly dying every time. But also too, like I'm actually, going through a lot of ECW tapes right now, and a lot of what Sabu was, his aura was created by Paulie's promos. Like we want to look back and say it was in-ring stuff. I think it has more to do with the fact that Paulie told you that this guy was extremely dangerous. He will hurt you in ways that you cannot imagine. This man will take his body and drive it into you. If he breaks all the bones in his body to kill you, he will. I mean,
homicidal, suicidal, I'm sorry, that was just forced out.
Exactly. You hear that every week, and you see these videos of him almost dying, but if you look at him now and you take out the context of him explaining it, it's like, God, that guy kind of fucked that move up and almost killed himself, but if you take it in the context of, this guy is so crazed that he doesn't give a fuck what happens to him. That's different or in a different, but I think, Paulie's promos probably did just as much, if not more, for Sabu's reputation than his in-ring product, I feel. I and I think that's, another thing I work with as well as PWX is $5 wrestling, and that was kind of the experiment. Can guys that, for the lack of a better term, like in an experiment, you need a control. So in this experiment, I take guys that lack or have no in-ring ability whatsoever. Can I get them over? Yes, I can. I can have people request guys in New York, and Indiana, Tennessee. I mean, I took Freight Train down to Miami, and I think $5 Live, drew 300 people just for the mere fact that Freight Train was there and they would get to meet him. It's about personalities and perceptions and characters and what the people want, And unfortunately right now, the Manscout, I don't know if people are so much into the funny or whatever, but, I think the Great Outdoors is the packages we have is a nice, good, solid babyface team. People are fans of the television show Game of Thrones and Ned Stark and how he ended up dying because he didn't want to take the low road. He was trying to do the good thing, but he ended up getting screwed. That's how I see the good guy image of the Manscout, whereas the evil Manscout is a guy who is corrupt by the rules. It's very hard to convey that to an audience, without having a platform to do so. And that's another thing too, is you got to have a good platform. There's not a lot of platforms out there for people. Evolve is doing the best they can. It's just I don't know if they've figured out if they're an pay-per-view company or they're a DVD company, and I think that's got more to do with it than anything, because where you're going to get your wrestling. A lot of people are looking on YouTube and online. We have a lot of young kids that aren't really counted in the wrestling pie because they don't have buying power yet. But in 2 or 3 years, all of these 8 and 12-year-olds will be driving cars or getting their learner's permit and be able to take themselves to wrestling shows or take themselves to the Walmart and buy the wrestling tape or be able to drive themselves to cut grass. Therefore, they have money to go in their PayPal account and buy the latest DVDs from Ring of Honor, Evolve, Drag Gate, whatever, and I think that's kind of what's going on is we need these young kids to get bitter and angry and mad at mom and dad, and they want to see something a little bit harder, and that's kind of what the indies is, because right now the kids want to see the fireworks and everything else. I mean, I see it so many times where a wrestling indie promotion has this nice, wonderful entranceway, and everybody talks about how wonderful the show was. Oh yeah, what was your favorite match? I don't know. I don't remember any of the guys on the show. What do you mean? Well, he said it was a great show. But they're like, no, God, they're so professional. How so? And you take that same crew of guys and you put them in an armory with just the wrestling ring and some curtains, people will not say the same exact thing.
Well, who were some that stood out to you, maybe some favorite wrestlers or matches that you've seen on the indies?
Oh, the match that I was very lucky to be on the floor filming, to me, was El Generico, Kevin Steen. I know a lot of people preferred Roderick and Davey from Final Battle 2010, but to me, I was so happy when I got called to come in and film that, because I was almost thinking about going out there and just seeing it as a fan. I mean, because those two are my favorite to watch. And as far as a match, I don't know if I've really wanted to see a particular match so much. A lot of the the other shows, like the Wrestle Reunion shows, like some of the PWS shows, there's been some interesting matchups that I thought were pretty cool, like Kevin Steen and Tommy Dreamer, El Generico and Great Sasuke versus the Young Bucks. It was kind of interesting. Davey versus Harry Smith was an interesting matchup that I think where people were kind of interested to see how it would go. Those are actually PWS, the Wrestle Reunion Super Show. They teamed up the next night, Harry and Davey did, like against the Young Bucks. So
that was Pro Wrestling Superstars up in Toronto? Yeah.
In Los Angeles. Toronto will be coming out soon. I'm actually working on that as we speak. I'm capturing the video as we speak. So,
well, you're always working, Jake, and you do good work. So where can we see you next, and any sites you want to plug?
Well, obviously highspots.com, please. We just changed over our operating site, I think is the correct web term. I may be wrong on that, but basically it's an all-new site on an all-new server and everything else, and we've got a lot of cool options that we weren't able to do, some customer loyalty options, some related items, and a better way to shop on Highspots. We've really kind of revamped it a little bit. So if you've had it like under your favorites and all of a sudden you can't click on it, the reason for that is we just switched over. All you got to do is just type in the same address you always have, highspots.com. It'll pop right up. And Highspots TV, which is what I spend tirelessly every night to make sure that we have a new clip, new match, new part to a shoot interview go up every single day on Highspots TV, and we were actually over 1,000 files. So on average, 15 minutes files. So I know of at least it's 15,000 minutes, probably close to 20,000 minutes on Highspots TV at this time of wrestling footage. It's highspots.tv for that. But also pay attention to PWX. I am available on Twitter at Manscout Manning. It has my link to my Facebook if you are a Facebooker still, but got my Twitter out there, and of course all the Twitters of PWX and everything else and the Highspots Twitter are all available. What I got coming up, I just got back from Indiana from a $5 wrestling taping, which hopefully I will be able to release some information about some upcoming stuff with that. PWX will be running in York, South Carolina, and PWX will be returning in July, the first weekend in July as well.
Great, and hopefully some of our fans and listeners get to see you there. So hope I get to see you soon, Jake. We haven't hung out in a while, so hopefully we get to see each other somewhere soon. And thanks a lot for the interview. It was great to finally have you on.
Oh, thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, we're going to move on to you guys, the callers, before we start our follow-up anyway, and we're going to get to some of you who have been on hold a while. Let's go back to Frank in Tacoma, Washington. Anything on your mind, Frank?
What were your thoughts on Face Big Show?
On who in Big Show?
Face Big Show.
On Face Big Show. Okay.
Yeah, the past year and a half or so.
People were really ripping on the Big Show segment, not yesterday, which I tweeted. You remember that demand Brock Lesnar made about Monday Night Raw starring Brock Lesnar? I think Big Show got it based on last night. But the week before, when he was forced to get on his knees and apologize, essentially, people were ripping on that and hating on it. I loved it. I thought it was really good, and maybe it's because I like the Big Show. I've always been a fan of the Giant going back to WCW, and so I kind of hold that still. But I've always liked the Big Show pretty much. I think he's pretty cool. He's had a bunch of good matches, maybe not all the time, but I think he's generally likable, and I think he could work as either a heel or a face. But for the past year or so, like you were asking, I don't mind it. I think he's slimmed up a little bit. Not very much, but a little bit. And I thought the look was kind of neat with the camouflage beanie shit. I thought it was all right.
I bring that up because you have all these asshole smart marks saying, we want heel Big Show, we want Big Show do this, we want that. I have a hard time buying it. He's coming out one week. I posted this in one of the videos. He's coming out, like you said, in the beanie, the camouflage. He's putting his thing on the kid, and then he comes out the next week in a suit, and we're supposed to start booing him. I'm just not a fan of this turn so far.
Ben in Austin, Texas. One of my favorite callers. Ben, you're on.
Hey, Eric. First of all, even though this is going away, thank you for 50 great radio shows and over 62 great just wrestling shows. You guys are really the best wrestling show out there. So first off, thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Ben.
And making me say Hogan and Friends. Now it's part of my lingo now.
You know what? It's funny you say that because we've already heard that. We've heard He Who We Do Not Speak Of. I love, because everyone who knows me knows I'm a big Howard Stern fan, and one of the bumpers they do on Sirius now is like about the Stern fans and how they've got their own secret language, and it's Jack Mayoffer and Hey Now and Baba Booey and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, man, we've got like our own little subculture here with memes like He Who We Do Not Speak Of and Blog and Hogan and Friends and stuff. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the whole Best and Worst Heel show that y'all recently, which I really loved. Mm-hmm. And to me, the best babyface all time, no matter what he did, was Mick Foley. Especially when he was feuding with Triple H in late '99 and early 2000. Mm-hmm. Just because, as much as I love Hogan and Cena, they look like gods in a way. Whereas Foley, and I'm on the heavier side. Foley didn't look like anybody else. He was the average guy. He is the babyface. Mm-hmm. Did TNA try to make him heel? I think they did, but I'm pretty sure I didn't like it.
Who the fuck could tell what they were doing half the time?
And in terms of best heels that I personally liked, and I got to meet the man personally, but Ted DiBiase, just that laugh and that sense of arrogance and the persona he carried with him. Even he to me is the greatest heel of all time.
All right, great, Ben. Thanks for your input. We'll be doing a follow-up on that a little later. And now let's go to Abe in Augusta, Georgia, one of our biggest fans. Hey, Abe.
Hey. I'm one of the biggest fans, but one of the phrases you use, I use it now, so bad is good. If you would sit on
reverse good.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Same difference.
But, I know. But it's reference to the show you did about the best faces, worst heels, I believe.
Yes.
One face that comes to mind that remind me if he turned heel ever if he did with Rey Mysterio, going back to WCW Mexico. I never remember him turning heel.
Well,
but he'd always been a great face in drawing and merchandise, stuff like that.
He was a heel in the Filthy Animals briefly. They were the group that I like to term Three Mexicans and Kidman, when it was Unmasked Mysterio, Conan, and Eddie, along with Kidman. This was when Russo first showed up, too. Oh. They were the ones who beat up and robbed Ric Flair and left him in the desert or whatever with all his jewelry and shit. So there was a very brief window there where Ray was a heel, but that's about all I could think of, unless he did something in his early Caribe Mexican career, but I doubt that. He was like 16, who's going to boo this little high-flying Mexican kid, so I'm pretty sure that was the only time.
Well, he did have, I remember you said this, you don't have to have a great talker to people to connect to you. He had it where you connect to him what he was doing. When they tried to make him talk, like in Eddie feud with 05, it didn't work. But just in the natural feuds, in 99 when... Before he lost the mask, remember he did an interview, I don't want to lose the mask, it's part of my life, stuff like that. That works, you'll believe it. When you do stuff where if you don't believe it, they're not going to like it. They don't give a crap. And also, I think you said where if you're a great heel, you become a great face. Three things that come to mind are Demolition, the Road Warriors, and Eddie Guerrero.
Well, Eddie Guerrero I used to describe in just one word, magic, in the sense that he seemed to get a reaction no matter whether he was a heel or a face, anywhere he went, big or small, and Eddie just was one of those sort of people, and Los Gringos Locos was mentioned from AAA on the comments, too, on YouTube, so that was cool. But he just seemed to get a reaction no matter what the circumstance was, so he was one of those guys that could do either one, and Will Brooks, I believe, was the one who talked about heels getting so appreciated that they become faces, and I want to do just a couple more calls before we start our follow-up, and Jeremy in New York, you are on.
Hey, what's going on, Eric?
Lots of shit, Jeremy. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to, once again, thank you guys for plugging my metal version of your theme again. I wanted to real quick ask you about, because there was a comment on the Worst Heels video, something about there was like a backlash. What the fuck was that about?
Well, you saw from my response, I have no idea, because I never saw a comment about it negatively at all.
The sound quality, is not the best or whatever. It's very budget for sure, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, I could tell you that I appreciated it. Lawrence really enjoyed that you did that, and when we were doing the Undertaker talk, I was like, it makes perfect sense. So I definitely had to incorporate it because I appreciated the fact that you did that so much because I know that piece of music in particular, Lawrence and I made together essentially, and he performed, and it was a real great experience to be able to do that for the show. So the fact that someone wanted to cover it, and that would be you, he really got off on that idea. He was very flattered. So I'm glad you're on.
I'm surprised that nobody had done it before because there like a lot of YouTube videos or they'll have their own little theme here and there. People do covers of it, and I didn't find anything. I was like, oh, why not, you know?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm shocked never fucking happened is more video responses. You see these not douchebags, but like dumbasses on fucking webcams posting on YouTube, and then they just get more responses from other people on webcams and stuff. And I was like, well, this show's all about interaction. We'll probably get tons of that, and we didn't. Like, we had fucking scramble on that Q&A when I was like, let's fucking force the issue and try and get people to send in videos, and it was pretty fucking hard. So I don't know why. I thought it would organically happen, and it just didn't. But I'm glad that you've been a fan a long time and cared enough to do that. So now that you're on, what do you got?
All right, well, just recently they put on their air date or whatever for Ring of Honor, just coverage of Border Wars, and they actually have that on Fox. It's on at like 1:30 in the morning, but still there's something around, I don't know if it's just because I'm in the New York area, so they broadcast it, but they put the match on in its entirety with commercials, the Kevin Steen, Davey Richards. That was a really good match, but at the same time, I kind of think that it was almost like a long time coming, but it was almost too late for him to finally get that belt away from Davey, because it just seems like that's all people wanted to see was the belt on him, you know. But it's good that it finally happened.
I know a lot of people going into it thought that they're going to drag this out till Final Battle, which fucking shoot me if that was the case, because Ring of Honor has had a bad habit for years of waiting too long to do title changes anyway, and thank Christ it wasn't in New York again. But I haven't seen the match, and frankly, most people haven't either. I mean, we all know that story. But luckily you got to see it, and I think that was a big draw. People were really interested in it, and frankly, I think they could have done it at the anniversary show, probably should have. I know it was New York, but still, being in Canada, Steen's home country, they did a great crowd live too. And if the stream had worked, they would have had a huge audience on the internet too, but not as big as past iPay-per-views either. That was still down significantly, which is, I find, very strange because I thought there was so much hype to this, but still a good amount. So between the live event and the iPay-per-view, a few thousand people were interested in this still. So I think in the state of the industry it is right now, I still think that says something about how they, or Steen in particular, were able to hype that.
Oh, yeah. Also, too, they did a lot of highlights for the match between the Briscoes and the World's Greatest Tag Team in a no-honor match, which is basically just a street fight. There's a lot of high spots, but it was a pretty good match. The finish was actually like Charlie Haas. He sprayed a little hand towel and put it over, I'm trying to think of which Briscoe brother it was, but he ended up putting it over his face to get him to pass out, and he ended up pinning him. Which
cutting edge stuff there.
Yeah. But no, that was still just the highlights of it. It looked like it was a really great match, a lot of high spots and everything like that. But also too, I wanted to comment on the Big Show's like various like term or various roles, I should say, as heel or face. It seems like he's one of the only types of guys that they can actually do that with, and it's believable, and people can kind of get behind it as of late with all the different, can we turn this guy face now or turn him heel now or whatever they have. He seems like one of the only people, and I don't know why that is.
Well, you wanted to be the guest call-in on this show. Sorry I haven't gotten to you yet, but you want to stay on the line as we move forward? Oh, okay, sorry about that, but we'll get to you. Will Brooks, we are back to you as we do some of our follow-up here, because with Undertaker, it was real interesting how people responded to this, because, first of all, this is a guy that people like you and I have been watching for over 20 years, and he's been wrestling a lot longer than that if we take into account the territory and WCW days. But just from Survivor Series 1990, on Thanksgiving Day, by the way, all the way up till now, that's a real long run, and he's still relevant, even if he's only wrestling once a year now. So a lot of our memories and moments came from the early days, but there's a whole generation of people who started watching even after the American Badass. So it's really amazing to think that they've got formative years worth of memories from this guy in a completely different era than we did. But one of the things I wanted to point out was about the streak, because someone left a really interesting comment about the streak on YouTube I wanted to share, because everyone pretty much agreed on show 61 that the streak should not end, but this person, Henley is watching you, longtime fan, left this comment that I wanted to share. Of course the streak should end. I haven't heard a single good reason to keep it intact other than it might not work. The person who beats him might end up leaving like Brock Lesnar. But does it matter? You have to take a chance sometimes. They might benefit from having him lose. They won't benefit from having him keep it. Plus, an Undertaker loss at WrestleMania would be 100 times more memorable than any Undertaker victory at this point. I think that's an interesting point. That alone would make it worth it. People tended to say Undertaker should keep it because it's all he is going for him in terms of a legacy also, which is hilarious. He had several gimmick matches created specifically for him. He's beaten every major star in the business. He won a fuck ton of championships and every other honor going. He has a streak of 20 WrestleMania wins. Even if he lost next year, that record wouldn't go away. People have a major blind spot for Taker. No one else gets this kind of treatment from fans. That part I would disagree with. We've gone on Facebook a lot, Royce and I, out in Pomona, California, about the hypocrisy that sometimes it's not good for the goose, but it's good for the gander on the internet in terms of who can get away with what. If the circumstances were changed, they wouldn't feel the same way depending on who it happens with. And I feel Undertaker has been very protected over the years. I think a lot of that has more to do with Vince McMahon being very protective of the character, because we've heard about that a lot. Not so much that he refuses to job, although in 2001 he certainly fucking did when DDP showed up, and that was just a very shitty situation. But I think a lot of it, like I said, is to do with Vince McMahon about being protective of the Undertaker. So I wouldn't necessarily go with that. But what do you think about his points about the streak? At this point, a loss would be more memorable than any win he could have. What do you think about that?
I guess a loss would be very memorable because there's 20-0, but it's so secret. Why would you change it?
Jeremy?
Well, the only reason I would not end it would it's not just the fact of it wouldn't work. It's just it seems like they've built it as such a huge thing that it almost seems like it, even though, yes, he would have the 20 victories and nobody has ever done that, it almost seems like just that one loss would kind of wash it away, and I think that's why a lot of people wouldn't want to see it fade like that. But to be honest, somebody's got to do it, because that's got to be the only way to end the Undertaker, because that seems like the only time he's ever going to come back to wrestle ever is that WrestleMania night. And if most of the time, anytime somebody retires, they got to lose at the big show or whatever, that'd probably be one of the only real sensible ways of him going out.
Frank, what do you think?
You know, I'm on the fence about it because, like Will said, it's one of the last sacred things in wrestling, how many are left. But on the other side, if it was going to be done, it would have to be done in a torch passing, a la Ted DiBiase rumors 2 years ago. Yeah, something of that nature. If it's going to be done, I can't see anybody on the roster currently.
Or even not on the roster currently, like fucking Rocket and Brock. They keep talking about those two guys for next year, and I'm like, maybe in the moment people might buy it, but I think going in, everyone would know there's no way they're going to make either one of those guys win.
Well, yeah, either an up-and-comer or an established name that he hasn't faced. I mean, 20 points. So, you know what? I would love to see Cena. I really would. I would buy maybe just even for that match, but if that doesn't happen, and let's be honest, there's a possibility that it probably won't soon, I don't want to see it end unless it's to put someone over, in essence.
Will Brooks, any other favorite moments or matches from The Undertaker that we didn't cover?
This year's WrestleMania match against Triple H with Shawn Michaels' special guest referee, it was really good. And Fastest Final match, great send-off.
I kept saying afterwards that and it's not intentional. And frankly, anytime people say, what about, or what do you think of blah, 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 I'm like, come on, motherfucker. Don't you understand the point of the show by now? You're supposed to interact. Leave your comments. Well, what about so-and-so? What about the? Yeah, what about it? Elaborate. I'm not going to hold your hand through everything. So, that being said, I did go through the show, and we did not mention one of my favorite feuds of all time. I was really surprised, but hey, we just get caught up in stuff, and that's really what the radio show and comments are supposed to be, filling in the blanks that we miss initially. We do have a time frame to fit in everything, but we didn't mention Mankind through the whole thing, and I was even surprised with myself. That's one of my favorite series and feuds of all time, and of course people bring up Hell in a Cell. That was actually a return to the feud because Undertaker beats Diesel at WrestleMania 12, which was a great match in and of itself. But the Monday Night Raw afterwards, Undertaker has a standard match with Bradshaw. He would beat JBL later on. And it's funny how Undertaker beat Nash at WrestleMania, but the next pay-per-view, Nash is getting the title shot. Don't remember how they arrived at that situation. But Undertaker is diverted from any sort of contention there and goes into a feud with Mankind. And what was great, too, is this repackaged Cactus Jack is the first guy to really get one up on Undertaker in that way. This wasn't like the Great Khali or Giant Gonzalez type guys who can manhandle him. This guy was smaller than the Undertaker, but he beat the shit out of him. What a sell job, and he kept getting one up on Undertaker at every turn, and this went on for a couple months. And, of course, Foley bumps his ass off for everybody. Nesty plunge at SummerSlam during the Boiler Room Brawl. But of all the matches they had, I wanted to mention, aside from, of course, we've talked about the classic Hell in a Cell often, but the title match after WrestleMania 13 at the next pay-per-view, Revenge of the Taker in Your House. Awesome fucking match. Really lost in the shuffle, underrated. I've alluded to the finish, or the aftermath, I should say, where Undertaker burns Paul Bear's face. Paul Bear, of course, had turned on the Undertaker and sided with Mankind the previous summer, and that set the seeds for the Kane debut later on. But this match, Foley bumped the shit out of himself, and Undertaker is really good at hardcore matches, too. He had a great fucking hardcore match with Rob Van Dam for the title, hardcore title at Vengeance 2001 in December that year, and he really could do hardcore well, whether it was Hell in a Cell or something with the steel steps and chairs and stuff, and that really got brought out in this Mankind feud. So Revenge of the Taker is one of those matches that's lost in the shuffle, but I did allude to Kane. Tons of matches they've had, some good, some real bad, but the first two they had officially I really enjoyed, which was WrestleMania 14. That was a great co-main event leading up to the main event with Austin and HBK, but this had been built up for essentially a year. Great plancha spot onto the table, 3 tombstones it took, and I really enjoyed that as well as the Inferno match. I mean, it seemed kind of final when he pinned Kane after 3 tombstones, but the feud continued, and it wasn't Backlash yet. It was Unforgiven. That was the April 98 pay-per-view and the first Inferno match, and even contrived as it was, I thought the syncing of the fire with the bumps and high spots was pretty cool. So, any other matches that come to mind, Jeremy?
The video package for the Buried Alive match with him and McMahon in 03, that was actually a pretty decent package, because normally it's just like a recap, but it was telling you a story of, you know, all the injustices that McMahon does, and he's going to be the one to end it and everything, which kind of led to the whole he's going to go away for a while, and then he comes back to fight Kane at WrestleMania 20. I thought that was a really good moment for Undertaker, but one of my more favorite matches was what was it there? I had it ready, too, and I just forgot it.
You fucked up. But it's funny you mentioned Buried Alive, because I love how not only has Undertaker been buried alive numerous times, every time he comes back with a new look.
Yeah. And he's never won one of those matches.
I love it, guys who can't even win their own specialty match.
Yeah.
Imagine Triple H in a Buried Alive match. That'd be appropriate. That's what he does every time, isn't it? But a lot of people brought up the 3-way at Vengeance 2002. This was for the title, and he lost it to The Rock here, and I really don't see it. I really actually hate that match. I know everybody loves it. I don't understand why. I think it's a complete cartoon video game everyone doing each other's finishers on each other, which is something I hate anyway, but fucking Rock chokeslamming Undertaker, give me a break. I never liked that match. But, Frank, any other ideas you've got?
You just read my mind, because I was about to say about the Vince 02 match. I have to agree with you. There's no semblance of selling. There's no story. It's three guys playing SmackDown versus Raw or whatever the hell they're calling it.
And they had a special and used the analog stick like no mercy.
Exactly. And then SmackDown flashes across the screen like it would in the first two games. But favorite moments, I'd have to say him coming back, WrestleMania 20. You were there, right, Eric?
Yeah, and I mentioned on the show we didn't know that Paul Bearer was going to be there, so that was a great surprise. And I didn't, of course, hear it at the time. I only found out on DVD after the fact that he said pretty much right to the camera, "My son, you're no son of mine." And I love that sort of continuity. Of course, the match blew, but everyone was there just for the entrance anyway. That's all people anticipated for months was the entrance. And the shitty match that followed, I guess, didn't really matter.
Yeah, so that moment was awesome. That whole attire that he was wearing that year, that janitor attire, I don't know, I didn't really like it. But favorite match?
Janitor?
One of my he just looked weird, man, with that bob haircut. But one of my favorite matches actually ever was him and Jeff on Raw.
Right.
In 02, and I thought that was great. That was probably one of the best TV matches of all time. And then him, shaking his hand, putting the young guy over.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised his match with Batista at WrestleMania 23 didn't come up more, since at least in WWE internally, they constantly put over that match. And I know people enjoyed the WrestleMania 21 match with Randy Orton as well. It seemed like Orton was one of the few people in the modern era that seemed to have a chance. Certainly Mark Henry didn't, but one of the WrestleMania matches that I thought was really good and didn't expect it to be necessarily was him and Flair at WrestleMania 18. It went real long, lots of high spots, including a fucking superplex of all things. And the only thing I thought was really weird, especially after Arn Anderson spine busts him and everything, but what's Undertaker to not kick out of something? But they put so much heat on the Undertaker. Like, he was such an asshole. He beat up Flair at the Trax warehouse with the SATs in the background, the Maximos, and he beats up Flair's son. He beats up Arn Anderson. He's just completely ruining Flair's life, and he still wins. That was really the first time that they made note or kind of highlighted the streak, like counting the numbers on his hands afterwards and everything. I don't think it was really a thing before that. And since then, of course, it's become the thing. But I just thought it was kind of weird. Undertaker wins after putting so much heat on himself, and Flair just completely lost. But speaking of Kurt Angle before, a lot of people brought up the No Way Out 2006 match, which I thought was a fine match, but I didn't get as into it as everybody else did. I thought it was okay. I actually thought the Backlash 99 match he had with Ken Shamrock was more ahead of its time. I mean, we all know Undertaker's an MMA fan. That's another reason wrestling fans should be more open-minded about MMA, because fuck, all the wrestlers are at least respect MMA, if not into it themselves. But Undertaker's a big advocate, of course, and this was in his Satanic Ministry days too, so especially watching it back now, it's not only ahead of its time, it seems out of place considering what he looked like. And, of course, that year he got real worn down with injuries and got slower and everything. But Shamrock was the perfect opponent to break out that sort of match with, and that's a real forgotten gem, too. But as far as moments go, speaking of the Ministry, I've brought up Where to, Stephanie on the show before, so I didn't want to bring that again. But another great soundbite from that era with the Ministry was Rock was calling out the tag team of Big Show and Undertaker or whatever on SmackDown, and they cut to a shot in the back where Big Show and Undertaker are watching the monitor, and Undertaker turns to Big Show and he goes, "You gonna pick that up? What? You just dropped your punk card." And Big Show's like, "Oh, come on," and he has to go out and face The Rock. But one other moment I wanted to mention is the funeral parlor skit with Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, of course, this came after his, I thought, really out of nowhere, and I didn't quite understand why, face turn on Saturday night's main event after the Jake the Snake Randy Savage match. Of course, Jake the Snake waiting in the wings behind the curtain with a chair, and I don't care who it is, I'm going to hit the first person through that curtain with a chair. And of Savage and Liz walking to the back, unbeknownst to them, and they cut between the two, building the tension, and when he goes to swing, Undertaker grabs the chair. And the follow-up was on Superstars, and of course I should have mentioned the great last scene there where after Jake's looking at Undertaker like, what the fuck, Savage whacks him with the chair, and Roberts is writhing on the ground, and Undertaker's watching this. Don't know why. And the follow-up on Superstars, he was trying to find out whose side are you on, big man? Not yours. And then he grabs the urn. Oh, no! And you want this? Come and get it. And he throws it in the casket, and when Undertaker goes to get it, slams the casket down on his fingers. Oh, my God, it was so fucking dramatic. And then while he's struggling to get this crushing grip off of his fingers, Jake DDT's fucking Paul Bearer on the stage, kicks the urn, and then starts whacking Undertaker with a chair, and he won't go down. He keeps walking, dragging the fucking casket. Holy shit, what great build to Jake Roberts' WrestleMania send-off at that moment. Ramon in Chicago, you're on, Ramon.
Hello, Eric. I wanted to ask a question to the panel concerning baby faces and heels.
We love questions. What is it?
Can you think of some faces or heels who you thought did a really good job in the mid-card position, but then when they were elevated to main event status, they didn't really work?
Well, I mean, I love to say Christian, but that's just my own personal feeling that I think he overstepped his bounds. I'm sure a popular answer to that would be Jeff Jarrett. I disagree there. I feel actually the reverse. I've always been a Jeff Jarrett fan, and I did buy him as a main eventer in WCW, not so much TNA. But what do you think, Jeremy? Someone who worked in the mid-card but didn't when they were elevated.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Christian because it almost seems like people don't like. I've been a big Christian fan, even when he was in TNA for that short period of time. I actually liked that he kind of got to break out a little more than he did in WWE, but at the same time, it was like, I don't know if he's got it all there. Another one, it seems like lately, is The Miz. Just because, I mean, you know, just like Shane was saying, he like, you know, I don't know what it is about. Like, I like the stuff with Morrison. I like that tag team, but it just seems like by the time he gets up to that main event status, nobody was really into it. Nobody really cared. I sure as hell didn't. I'm not a big Miz fan, but
well, actually, Anthony said that. But
did he? Oh.
But regardless, it is funny thinking now, especially like how squashed Miz was last night and how far he's fallen. Like at the time he used the Money in the Bank briefcase, it was like, oh great, they just made a star, and especially with his fucking entrance at WrestleMania, people were like, oh yeah, Miz's time and blah blah blah. Funny now, thinking back, that actually happened? They put the belt on the Miz? Frank, you have any others? Because I know Miz certainly reminded me of Billy Gunn, and even though I still think that The Rock undermined Billy Gunn with his, Billy promos in '99 made him out to be a goof, which he is. And I mean, I'm not going to defend Billy Gunn necessarily, but point is they were trying to make him a star by putting him with The Rock in essentially the co-main event of SummerSlam '99, and that didn't work at all, did it?
I just want to comment on a couple other ones. Christian, I guess he was starting to get over with me before he got injured. I really liked the one more match thing. That was kind of cool of me. Miz, I got to agree with Miz. Like, just, it's horrible. It's horrible what's happened to him. But all right, I guess a recent example would be the face R-Truth. This bridge he made when he turned face, where he was still keeping the crazy tendencies while performing as a face. It obviously just didn't last too long because within a month he was teaming with Kofi, jobbing to Primo and Epico.
808 area code, you are on, so name and location, please.
Hey, the name's Brian, and I'm representing Hawaii.
Awesome, wow, I think you're our first Hawaii call, so that's great. Hey,
yeah,
Brian.
Oh, trust me, I have been a fan for a long time. You guys, really, you guys are awesome. One of the questions that I had, and we're going to go back. We're going to go back to, I want to say, Extreme Rules.
Way back in the time.
Yeah, we're going to go way back. But mainly like the Brock Lesnar, John Cena whole promo crap thing that they did. My question is,
why didn't they bring up the whole thing that they did with, what was it, 2003 when they had a feud before? Why didn't they bring that up? It would have been
I
much
am
better.
so glad that you brought that up, because there were so many people who, like I talked about on the last show, how I was so fucking upset at how the internet and those smart mark type fans were shitting all over the fact that Cena won and the Brock thing is ruined now and all this other bullshit. Before they even went in a, let's say, different direction the next night, afterwards I was thinking, people were like, how are they even going to be into a rematch now? Like, Cena's beaten Brock. Why would we even have a rematch? I know WWE doesn't like to acknowledge history unless it's convenient for them, but why don't they just say, if they want to do another rematch, maybe next year or whatever, rubber match. They are 1-1 now in April pay-per-views. Brock won in Backlash 2003, and now Cena won at Extreme Rules. They're 1-1, so it makes perfect sense now.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, I would have brought it up because didn't Cena do a promo that was the eventual birth of the FU? Didn't he do that?
Of course, that's where the name came from, because that was his.
Yeah, so
you got the F5, I got the FU.
Yeah, I kind of laughed at that personally, but whatever. And I know earlier y'all was talking about favorite Undertaker moments, and I had a few, only a few. WrestleMania, Hell in a Cell, Taker, and the Big Boss Man. Now I'm playing.
I love it how in the Crash TV Attitude Era of Russo that they would actually fucking kill a guy. Like, they fucking hung the Big Boss Man, and then he's just wrestling the next night, the next week, whatever, like it didn't fucking happen. They fucking hung him in a ring. What the hell?
Yeah, I was just laughing at that. I was like, this is hilarious. But one of the good ones that I do kind of remember, you got to follow me on this one. It was him and Kane with DDP and Kane in that steel cage match, that title unification show.
Let me stop you. First of all, it wasn't for unification, actually. It was title for title. It wasn't a unification, because WWE has to make up their mind. When Undertaker and Kane, the Brothers of Destruction, held the WWF and WCW titles at the same time, they announced them as the unified champions. If that was the case, they couldn't lose them separately, which is what they did. If they were unified, it's no two sets of belts anymore. So they were just misusing words there. So it wasn't unification. And two, are you serious?
Hey, like I said, I didn't say a wrestling match. I just said it was entertaining. That part I like. Yeah, see, it was entertaining. I like that.
Maybe in a playing No Mercy on extreme difficulty sort of way.
Yeah, see what I'm saying? Yeah, baby faces that you brought up earlier too. I've only liked some of the promos that they did. Like I remember what Steve Austin did one for Royal Rumble. The only reason why I liked it was because he played to the crowd. That's the only reason why I really liked it. You know, that was when the wet chant was big and everything. Yeah, and he did it in Texas, which was big, which was a key moment for me, because he was bragging about, I came in from Texas and I went to Whataburger and I had this burger. Yeah, it was great. Personally, I liked it only because he played to the crowd. That was one good promo I liked as a face. And another good face moment I liked was when Rock did the same thing. It was the very first, that draft crap that they did with Vince and Flair. That little draft. And Vince picked Rock, and he came to the stage, and it was in Penn State, and he said all that stuff. I loved it. When he made the crowd say all that stuff, I loved it.
You are an asshole.
I loved it. That was a good moment for me.
I'm really surprised that never caught on.
I'm really surprised, but I'm not surprised because I speak to fans nowadays, and all they know is The Rock and Austin, and they don't even watch wrestling no more. But those are the only two guys they know. So I was like, well, yeah, whatever. Moving on. But as a corny heel, I didn't buy Rey Mysterio. And with the filthy animals, I didn't buy that. That was really, it was funny to me. I laughed at it.
I did like unmask Mysterio's horns around that time that he would glue on. I thought that was an actually pretty cool little look. But thanks a lot, Brian. Really cool. We got a call from Hawaii. Now, Sean in Florida, you are on.
Hey, Eric. Before I go to my main topic, I want to talk about The Undertaker. 2 matches and one of his moments. Mm-hmm. And his match that I really like was, he's had like 3 great matches with Triple H at each of those WrestleManias he had, and the one I was at this year. but I think the best one that those two had was the 17 match, because it was a standard one-on-one match. It was not even hardcore, but when the ref was down, they ended up making it as a hardcore match.
Yeah,
so
crash pad and everything.
Yeah, the crash pad. Even with the crash pad, I still enjoyed the match.
The finish was still awesome.
Yeah. The second match I want to mention very quickly actually was a forgotten gem actually that I wanted to mention on a previous show I was on, and it was in December 2000 was him and Raven in the hardcore match on SmackDown.
Wow.
Well, that was a really fun match. Fun. It was good, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that hardcore match. It was simple, and it was not those goofy, 24/7 rule. No, when everybody comes in and interferes in the match. It was a simple one-on-one hardcore match. A moment I want to talk about the Undertaker. And I know you said before. I mean, I enjoyed that Where to Stephanie moment. But I also did enjoy the wedding. Yeah, well, the Stephanie wedding when Stephanie was was crucified. But the moment that I want to talk about was actually not on TV, but it was on the Raw DVD, I think, and on the internet, which was the night when Ric Flair was retired. But when Ric Flair officially was retired after WrestleMania 24,
right?
At the end of the show, when Undertaker came out, everybody just moved out of the way, and he came up, went to Ric Flair, kneeled down, the lights went up, and just the one bright light shines on Ric Flair. Love that moment. That was just
I don't know why they didn't show that on TV.
I don't know either. I think that should have been on TV.
It wasn't anything character breaking for him or anything.
No, because everybody else was heel, and they all came out and greeted Ric Flair. They were already breaking kayfabe. It wouldn't have made any difference. That moment should have been on TV. One quick thing, it's on my disappointment meter because it was on a film actually. It was the announcement of G.I. Joe Retaliation not coming out this year but coming out next year. Because they wanted to convert the film to 3D. And it really
I think that's just a front. I think there's more going on than converting it to 3D. It wouldn't take that long, I don't think.
That was just one of the topics I heard, but only because not just because The Rock's in it. It's because I'm a fan of G.I. Joe. I'm a fan of the old cartoon show, and I enjoyed the first movie. I know many people did not like it, but I was probably one of the few that enjoyed the first G.I. Joe movie. And I didn't like the fact that The Rock was in this one. He's playing one of the characters I like, Roadblock. So I was really disappointed here. But then again, I mean, I have to wait for that film next year, but there still is The Dark Knight Rises, The Amazing Spider-Man, Prometheus, and Skyfall. So I still have all those movies I still want to see.
I'm really excited for Prometheus and Skyfall later in the year, too. I haven't seen a Bond movie in the theater in 10 years, but that's not wrestling, and we're here to talk about wrestling or MMA, whatever. But we've got about less than a minute left to the standard broadcast. If you haven't called in yet, you're not going to have the chance to listen and call 347-857-4647. And if you aren't joining us in overtime and you're listening after the fact, thanks very much for listening to Wrestling Roundtable Radio. I'm sure we'll be back in some form, but we'll see. We'll keep you updated on Twitter, Facebook, the website, and all the other areas that we have. So get all the links at WrestlingRoundtable.com. All right, we are in overtime. So if you're listening, you called in at the appropriate time. And let's go to a couple calls before we dive into the follow-up on show number 62, the best and worst babyfaces and heels. Let's go to 347 area code. Your name and location, please.
Hey, this is Kevin from Brooklyn, New York.
All right. Hey, what's up, man?
I'm a great fan of your shows. I've been watching this since the beginning. The Who Do We Not Speak Of angle came out. Yeah, it's been a long time. So, I wanted to say my favorite moment. My favorite moment would be when The Rock came to Raw that 2003 after he beat Hulk Hogan. Man, he antagonized that Montreal crowd. When Shawn Michaels, I think it was a week after he kicked Hulk Hogan during 2005. Do you remember when he teased Bret Hart's return and they come out?
Yeah, that was really trolling the Montreal crowd as only he could do.
And I wanted to ask you another question. How do you feel on how Raw is now will become a 3-hour show? I think July 23rd, because I think you would learn that WWE would learn their lesson because WCW was a 3-hour show.
I love it because, firstly, the people who are saying things like, well, WWE's going to start a cruiserweight division again, and they're going to reemphasize tag teams and all this stuff with this extra hour that they're going to have, and we're going to see more faces. They're way more optimistic than I am. because as it is, they already have a ton of TV time. I'm pretty sure this was, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure this was mostly motivated by the USA Network itself. They wanted to just get another hour's worth of ad time, and Raw does a good rating anyway. Not great like it used to do, but still better than most. Still number one on USA and cable in general, so an extra hour, great. And everyone who thinks that this is going to lead to more people on TV, and granted, this is a time when they are calling up a lot of people from developmental and debuting a lot of new faces, Claudio, Damian Sandow, and more waiting in the wings, especially with the FCW moving to Connecticut or whatever the fuck story it is. So you'd think so. But I just look at it like there's 2 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, Superstars, NXT, not including pay-per-views, not including the potential network, and not including the YouTube channel too. So they have all this time, and we're still seeing Big Show and half the show. We're still seeing the same faces every week, and now they're going to exhaust the shitload of the guys with Danielson and Punk on SmackDown for the foreseeable future, or a bunch of times coming up. They just are coming off that Brazilian tour or whatever, and everyone's really beat. So everyone's like on every show anyway. The brand split is practically non-existent, at least in a one-way street with Raw. And I think what we're going to see in the coming months is people complaining that it's the same guys on every show and blah, blah, blah. Looking at it through rose-colored glasses of what potentially it could be in an ideal situation, I think you're just going to get disappointed. So the second part about it I love is that, once again, WWE will just do everything WCW does wrong. Well, not everything, but a lot of what WCW did wrong, and they can get away with it. This just being another example. And I was like, WCW didn't stick with 3 hours too long, and I guess internally some people are thinking that's what's going to happen. They're going to cut back eventually. But Nitro went to 3 hours. They already had a second blue-colored second show that was 2 hours a few days later, and the weekend shows. And I'm like, this all sounds real familiar, and yet they still want to do it. But I guess that's what they pay their writing team for, whatever. We'll see how long it lasts, but I just don't really think it's going to end up being as great as people think, if that answers your question.
Thanks, Eric. And another question. Well, how would you think the state of wrestling would be if Julio Not Speak Up and Eddie Guerrero was still living to this day?
Well, the drug policy would not be as it is. I mean, as it is, it's still a joke regardless. I mean, Orton and Batista never got suspended for anything. They seem to be exempt. But, okay, I mean, I will grant that they are a lot better with things, and I'm sure the fact that Linda's running to Senate and they have a Mattel deal, which I constantly go back to, has a lot to do with it too, but I do like the fact that there isn't as much fucking violence. And I don't mean to say that I don't like violence in wrestling at times, but well, what I mean is, it was brought up about last year's WrestleMania match with Triple H and Undertaker that there was a chair shot. Whoo! A chair shot. And it was special. Yeah, you know why? Because they don't do it on every fucking Monday night. If you watch the fucking Monday Night Wars back, it's like pretty fucking excessive. Just with what the guys would go through up and down the card, just arbitrarily for no reason. Just, here's a table spot, here's a cage match, chair shots. And it just was so commonplace. And frankly, I think it's a lot better for the wrestlers and a lot better for, let's say, excess on TV. So that way, when there is something like that, a chair shot last year at WrestleMania, Brock and Cena this year, or whatever it might be, it means more because it's not done to fucking death. It's the same theory as title changes. You do title changes to the point where there's tons of people who are former world champions. Well, that doesn't make anybody special then if everyone has done it, and they do it so quickly and often on TV or whatever the fuck. It's great that Punk has had the belt this long. I thought it was great when Cena had the belt a year. People hated it, but I'm like, well, what the fuck do you want? You complain about titles not meaning anything and then complain when someone has the belt that long like it used to be when it did. So I don't people always complain about anything, but I think it's at least a little better that people are more aware of this, at least in the public, for the sake of their health. Because it is important for the sake of their well-being and health to have healthy performers and protect them and everything. So I think at the very least that's good, that there's more awareness of concussion and, I guess, drug-related sort of issues. But that aside, I really don't see that much of a difference.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you very much. Those are some awesome questions. 210, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, you were on. I don't know if we couldn't get through to you before, but what's
no,
your name?
No, sir, that wasn't me. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, Mr. Santamaria. I'm Humberto Tamez. I'm pretty sure you know who I am. I tweet you every so often about how great the shows have been. Denver to the Max on Twitter. Shameless promotion for myself.
Thank you very much. Where are you from?
I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. I lived in San Antonio, but right now I live in the Poteet, Texas area. So just going backwards from the beach to the city and now the backwoods, and that's why my internet is not up to par, so to speak.
All right. I haven't been to Texas in a couple of years. I was only there for WrestleMania weekend, but it sucks being on the road because, in a way, you can't get to enjoy a lot of the time. Sometimes you do have the chance, like I got to go up in the Arch in St. Louis, but when I was out in San Francisco, I didn't get to see the Golden Gate. A lot of times when you go to a city or a place, it's just there for work. So you're in a hotel, go straight to the building or whatever.
Exactly.
I would have loved to have seen a lot more of Texas, especially how huge a state it is. Maybe I'll get to sometime. So what do you got to say, man? I'm glad you called.
Oh, well, actually, it's very ironic that this last show has been bringing up a lot of things that I've been talking to one of my friends who I'm getting back into wrestling, and at least, like, have them know things that I know things. Y'all touched on Benoit and Eddie, who I've actually told. My friend actually did not know. He actually asked me on Monday night why or when they started doing the Apex Predator and Viper nicknames for Randy Orton. And I looked at him and I was like, well, that started like, I want to say like 08, beginning of 09, like the whole Triple H thing with his family and Wayne and Roman and all that. And I told him why, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it has to do, with Benoit killing his family. I'm pretty sure they can't say the word legend killer anymore.
You don't think it was more they were trying to make him kind of Austin-esque?
I guess like how Cena's like, I guess Stone Cold and Randy Orton is The Rock. I really, honestly can't really compare it because like you say and like other people say too, Hogan and then Rock, Cena. Then I want
Hogan. You to finish your point, but I do have to cut you off here because I just had this thought. With all this talk about the WWE 13 video game coming out, and especially on our fucking Facebook page, but with all this WWE 13 talk and the fact that it's the Attitude Era revival and relive the Attitude Era, and it's still more this glamorization of the past.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
It's so weird to me that so much of this nostalgia and glamorization of the past comes up because we all know what it means. If they were doing great now, you wouldn't be doing that. If in the Rock and Wrestling Connection, were they waxing nostalgia, if you want to use that term, about fucking Billy Graham and Bruno Sammartino? In the Attitude Era, were they bringing up King Kong Bundy and Paul Orndorff all the time? No.
Yeah.
So what does that tell me?
Exactly.
It tells me that right now, because you were talking about making Cena and Orton and those type of guys the faces of
those people from the Attitude Era in this generation.
Well, this generation is the problem, okay?
Exactly.
If you're going to bring up the Attitude Era, that was a label. The Attitude Era, Rock and Wrestling, New Generation, like they seem to have identities. What the fuck is their identity now, huh? And I know everyone calls it the PG Era, but that's a fucking term that the internet uses. What does WWE call itself now? They have nothing.
I did try to get the Internet Era as a term when Zack Ryder won the U.S. title after TLC. But one of my other points was, did you, I know, like, it was a feel-good moment for WrestleMania, but, like, seeing how, like, things have pretty much, like, de-evolved, if that's the correct word to use, if that's even a word at all, pretty much not only of the Intercontinental title, but of Big Show himself having an Intercontinental title when he's just going to, quote-unquote, lose his job and then turn heel, and then Christian makes a surprise return at Over the Limit and then wins it and then challenges Santino. Oh, wait, but he's going to turn face for some reason and challenge Cody and wins it and all this other nonsense, I guess is the word. Does that not only devalue the title, and also does that not devalue Big Show's heel turn? Because in a sense, I know this prestigious title lineage of both WCW and WWF and WWE, not only being one of the few people to hold both, like, all the big gold belt WCW on Nitro.
And ECW.
And ECW, exactly. It may have been fake ECW, but it was the right title. It wasn't the big giant Phoenix, Divas title, Jeff Hardy title in TNA, whatever the fuck it was. And then along with the Eagle, he had the Eagle belt as well. And I just wanted to know, like, what exactly was your opinion about this whole situation.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they don't make the belts important, they won't be. And all the belts are props right now to them. And granted, it's not just Vince Russo who says that. Jim Ross says it too. And technically, it's correct. They are props. They are not championships won in real fights. They're not legitimate. But so what? They're fucking props. What's the Hitchcock term? God damn it. I'm drawing a blank here on my movie terms. But like in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the idol at the beginning, that's a prop. But so fucking what? When the camera's on, you're in the illusion. You're pretending that it means something. And that's what the belts are supposed to be too. All the belts are to WWE now are just a way to sell replica merchandise. That's the only reason you'd think it's even there, because they don't even bother most of the time to make them anything special. And when you do bullshit like having fucking Big Show beat down the U.S. champion on Monday, well, what the fuck is the point of that? It's the MacGuffin, by the way. I couldn't remember. It just came back to me. But the belt is the MacGuffin. And when you have the fucking Big Show beat down the U.S. champion or the tag champions lose like Primo and Epico did forever, well, of course we're not going to care because they're supposed to be champions for a reason, that they're good, but clearly they're not. And Cena's the fucking star of the show anyway. Neither world title has main evented, gone last on the pay-per-view all year. And it doesn't look like that's going to change yet for the foreseeable future. That is fucking absurd. I understand making exceptions for things like Undertaker's streak or the Royal Rumble or a big match like Cena Rock. But really, to be coming up on June and not have it happen yet? That's just ridiculous. So, of all the people, they choose Santino to get squashed by Big Show, as if there aren't a million fucking people from NXT or whatever. But thanks a lot for the call. Another one from Texas. That's great. But let's move on to the follow-up, and we'll get to the rest of you afterwards, of some of our latest shows, this one being number 62, some of the best and worst heels. Now, I don't think I hammered it home enough about just how terrible a heel Rick Steiner was, because this was truly go-away heat, if there even was heat. This was just more like he's on the TV, turning the channel. I thought his inverse goatee-dyed look was awesome when he turned heel, but as soon as the match started, he was just the utter shits. Boring, slow, no selling, no showing ass, fuck that. I mean, one of the last Nitros, at least in the latter portion of the last few months, I believe, they started the Nitro in the middle of a Dustin Rhodes Rick Steiner match, and I'm like, really? It's a cool idea to start the show in the middle of a match, granted, but it's fucking Dustin Rhodes and Rick Steiner. The other channels got fucking rockin' Triple H and all these hot acts, and you're starting with that shit? Rick Steiner was just utter change the channel, boring. A lot of people brought up John Laurinaitis for terrible heel. Some people brought up Vicky, though. It seems like she gets a lot of heat, so I don't know about that. I certainly enjoyed her ass, if nothing else. Some people called out Jeff Hardy for his heel turn in TNA the other year. He didn't really seem that into it. Hard to disagree there. But one that was brought up that I just absolutely loved was the natural disasters, and specifically earthquake. And this was one of those instances where I just did not buy it. This was wrestling logic at its worst. Because when I was young watching this unfold, it was some bullshit where Jimmy Hart managed a lot of heels, including a lot of heel tag teams, and screwed them over somehow, so they turned on him and they left Jimmy Hart's fold. So now they come out as smiling baby faces and we're supposed to be cheered, and you see them on fucking Wrestling Challenge or Superstars or whatever with the overdubbed crowd noise and like, oh, we're supposed to cheer them now. And I was like, I'm not cheering the fucking asshole who killed Damien and the guy who hurt Hulk Hogan. He hasn't repented for any of that, so why the fuck should I cheer him now? I mean, I like John Tenta now. He's cool and everything, but at the time I just did not buy that whatsoever. Some of the best, though, Jerry the King Lawler was one. I mean, people did bring up how fucking horrible a babyface he is, which he's been doing for a while now, at least. I mean, maybe if you're in Memphis, he's a great babyface because he's from there and a legend there. But on WWE Raw, commentating every week, it's weak sauce. He's such a great heel, too. It seems like such a waste. Such a great talker. Another great talker was Nick Bockwinkel. He was more along the lines of the sophisticated, articulate, technical wrestler heel, and that's another example, funny enough, about this whole managers or mouthpieces thing. He was managed by Bobby Heenan. Both were great heels and both were great talkers, so he didn't necessarily need Bobby Heenan there. But Jake the Snake Roberts, I alluded to him before with the Undertaker thing, and yeah, this was a guy I needed to bring up a little more because holy fuck. Everyone likes to talk about his promo style and everything, but that didn't really change too much between face and heel. He did start off as a heel in the WWF once he came up from the Georgia area, but was a face for most of his run up until 1991. Now, of course, he led the Ultimate Warrior astray. Don't trust the snake, Warrior. That was the lesson after all those weird rituals he put him through. But that's not even what really made me hate Jake the Snake Roberts. It was all the stuff he did with the Macho Man Randy Savage, from the snake bite that was fucking frightening on Superstars when he tied up Randy Savage, and this devenomized cobra they used for this thing. It was a fucking real snake biting him. There was no way around it. It was fucking frightening. But also when he laid his hands on Miss Elizabeth on Tuesday in Texas, one of the lowest things I've ever seen. Now, there was allusions to hitting Miss Elizabeth before. Maybe she got shoved, but this was a slap right in the face, and almost like a punch. Oh, my God. Ultra white hot heat on Jake the Snake after that. So, do want to get to some moments, too, but do you have any others you wanted to throw in there, Jeremy, as some of your favorite or least favorite heels?
For, like, a manager mouthpiece, Paul Heyman was always a good heel, I always felt, because he just had that, just his voice tone that he has, it just portrays a heel in a sense, you know, all the stuff with Lesnar.
No, that's not Brock Lesnar. It's Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. Lesnar. And then every time, like, because I used to work at a casino and they'd air pay-per-views for UFC. Anytime he'd come out, he'd come out there. That's all I'd have to say. And I had a couple buddies that watched wrestling, so they knew what I was talking about. They got a good laugh out of that. But one of the worst ones was, I think, the heel turn for Matt Hardy in 2009 when he screwed over Jeff. It was
totally forced and artificial bullshit.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I mean, some of the matches were okay. I mean, there weren't anything spectacular by any means, but, you know, it's like, why? Why even? And then a few months down the road, he's being cheered for again. You know, what was even the point?
Frank, any input on this one?
Best heel, Jericho. He's such a natural. He's a nice guy in real life, but on screen, he's just such an ass. Like, when he came back in 2007, I just watched that back. It was just horrible, him as a face. And worst, Dungeon of Doom in 95, all of them. The man who walks light and dark from Yin and Yang.
Oh, I've gone on so much about the Dungeon of Doom on this show, but for Chris Jericho, and people think I'm not being serious, but I am. I really only was a fan of his WCW stuff. Sorry to say, but I just really thought that was the perfect role for him. Maybe I should have brought up Jericho. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have, because people obviously do buy him and do respect him, do like him and everything, but I just thought he was perfect as the sniveling cruiserweight heel. Granted, it was in an entertaining heel to me sort of way, because I thought he was just so funny and entertaining and just great, but so much stuff he did back then just connected with me and stuck with me more than anything, including his I'm a Psycho Now Shawn Michaels feud shit. But stuff like the 1004 holds list reading, going through commercial breaks, the
armbar,
the Cruiserweight Trophy streak he was on, where he beat Ayakea and took his lei or whatever, his skirt thing, beat Juventud, took the mask, beat up Ray, took his prosthetic leg with a brace on it and shit, bore us Malenko, and I brought up the Malenko feud, and a scale that it would make guys get on to make sure they were cruiserweight level. There's so many great things he did, to say nothing of Ralphus and the, I guess, aborted Goldberg feud. But some of the moments I wanted to bring up, too, were Jim Cornette in the NWA as part of the Midnight Express. Of course, feuding with the Rock and Roll Express pretty famously, but he cut a promo on Robert Gibson, who his parents were deaf, so he would communicate with sign language. And Cornette threatened to break his hands so he couldn't communicate with his parents. Oh my God, that just gets right at your core. That is great. Kind of like the whole Sandman being blinded by Tommy Dreamer's flame in ECW sort of thing, so he couldn't see the birth of his son. That's great dastardly heel shit. And what's really amazing, too, speaking of great heels, that brings me to Sergeant Slaughter, because this has come up a lot with the Jericho Brazilian flag thing. People repeat this as if it's fact, and it's completely an inference. He never burned an American flag, but people say that as if it's a fact, and it's not. All Sergeant Slaughter, who, granted, may have started off as G.I. Joe, all about America and everything, but with that voice and that chin and inflection, he was such a detestable heel with Immortal Slime and Ultimate Puke, and oh my God, he was just great at that role. He was so hateable. But he set fire, along with General Adnan, to Hulk Hogan posters, Hulk Hogan shirts, never an American flag. Now, the implication there is, of course, burning an American flag, as we've seen a lot of Arab countries do that, but he never actually did it. So all this time goes by, and people misremember it. Sergeant Slaughter burned an American flag, and they say it as if it's a fact, and it's not. It's just amazing what they really got across with just that implication. But anyway, some of the others were, I loved when Randy Orton, this is going to be two with handcuffed Triple H on Raw a couple years ago, building up to the WrestleMania match, and he beats up Stephanie in front of Triple H. Triple H, of course, is handcuffed, can't do anything to stop this. I just love this. It's so delicious. It's juicy. It's terrible. Like when Earthquake killed Damien when Jake was tied up in the ropes. When you were forced to watch something terrible happen to someone you love, whether it's a Snake or a McMahon, although some people think the same thing, and you are powerless to do anything to stop it. And then Orton, after Stephanie's down and unconscious, Triple H is seething, and he licks her face. Oh my God, that was great build. Another one that gets you right in the gut was the Nitro after Sold Out 97, the first NWO pay-per-view, and the first pay-per-view they ever did with that, where Randy Anderson, a WCW referee, ran in during the Steiners Outsiders match and counted the pinfall, so the Steiners win the belt, but he's not an NWO rep, it wasn't official. So they stripped the fucking Steiners of the belts and reward it back to the Outsiders. And then Bischoff on the Nitro set, the announce booth, calls out after taking care of this business, the other person he had business with, Randy Anderson, and then he fires Randy Anderson. And the next week, Randy Anderson comes out on Nitro. He asked for some time to speak with Bischoff personally with his kids, and he said, please, I've had cancer, or I have cancer. I have to support these children. I need this job. And Bischoff looks at the kids and sets them up so perfectly and then says, tell your daddy he's still fired. And the fucking douchebag Outsiders are sitting side by side with him, laughing and clapping at this. Please, Mr. Bischoff. No. Oh, my God. Great heel shit there. Terry Funk, after the Ric Flair title win in 1989 against Ricky Steamboat, his great moment. Terry Funk, one of the judges, comes out and says he wants to come out of retirement and challenge Ric Flair for the title, and Ric Flair pretty much said no. Funk flips out on him and totally changes the tone from focusing away from this great classic match that we just had, one of my favorite matches of all time, too, just a classic match, to he just broke Ric Flair's neck on a fucking table. And, of course, later on this would escalate to choking Flair out with a plastic bag. Just great shit. But the other handcuff one, I got a little off track. The other handcuff one I wanted to mention, too, was building up to WrestleMania 20 on SmackDown. Eddie Guerrero was getting into it with General Manager Paul Heyman. Now, what was great about the build with the Kurt Angle-Eddie Guerrero match was the slow burn, setting the seeds at the Royal Rumble that Eddie shouldn't participate in the Royal Rumble match. He should wrestle Chavo. He had reservations. I don't want to wrestle my nephew. And Angle convinced him to do it instead of participating in the Rumble match so he could be in the Rumble match himself. And then he challenges Eddie for the belt. And he's embarrassed that this drug addict, funny enough coming from Kurt Angle, of course, but he's embarrassed this drug addict is the champion. And so Heyman is getting into it with Eddie. And he says something like, I could beat you with both hands tied behind my back, and okay, let's do it. And they set up the match. So Eddie is actually handcuffed and runs after Heyman, who runs to the back, and then Kurt Angle walks out. What great visuals here, told strictly through facial movement and expressions. Eddie sees that he was lured into a trap, and the blue, steel-eyed Kurt Angle, this psycho, is there, wrapping up his hands like we all know what's going to happen, and Eddie knows, oh, fuck. But then he tries defending himself anyway, but then he gets bloody beaten down like expected. Just such great build there. Of course, we all know Cheryl Roberts getting put on the tights, painted on the tights of Ravishing Rick Rude. That was great stuff. Everyone really seemed to like Triple H turning on Shawn Michaels in 2002 after the DX tease, but I wouldn't want to leave the heel moments without mentioning the Four Horsemen breaking Dusty's arm. In this camera they shot with themselves, they attack Dusty in a parking lot in NWA and break his arm. Just classic Four Horsemen stuff there. Aaron in Maryland, I believe. You're on, Aaron.
Hey, Eric, what's up? Sorry it's been a long time. I have been on for the past 2 shows. How y'all been?
Oh, doing all right. It's a long show, but I don't give a fuck. So let's keep it going. So
yeah, just like you don't give a fuck about the Smart Marks either. Good call.
What's up?
But for the best heels, I think one of my favorites, and I don't know if this may have been a short-term thing, but with Jushin Liger during the Noah New Japan feud, when it happened in between 2002 and 2004, man, it's just Liger as a babyface, and I'll get back to him for a babyface. He's one of the best babyfaces of all time, too. But when you see heel Liger in New Japan, when he's facing off against the Noah guys, it's just like magic. He's just acting like a cocky, arrogant dick to these guys. It's just magic. Also even though this may be terms of a group, but one of the seen forgotten heel groups and is the Dangerous Alliance. Well, one of my favorite heel moments was the whole Rick Rude, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat feud, where Rude convinced Ricky the Dragon Steamboat that his wife was having an affair with Rick Rude, and then the whole beatdowns afterwards being up Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's face, and just that whole feel, that dynamic, it leads to like an old Memphis 80s sort of feel. For face moments, for one of my favorites is Homicide winning the title at Final Battle 2006 against Bryan Danielson, because that was built up so beautifully. For ever since 2003, Homicide has never been able to win the Ring of Honor World title because of circumstances against Samoa Joe being the monster heel in 03 and 04, and Jim Cornette being a dick to Homicide, never letting him win the ROH World title. But just after that, all that months of frustration, Homicide finally beats Bryan Danielson and wins the ROH World title. And Bryan, being like the true professional that he is, comes out and shakes Homicide's hand and admitting that you were the better man that night, instead of being a dick and leading off with Jim Cornette. Because I think that Bryan Danielson is one of the best heels and faces of all time, because he can play the underdog babyface so well, but then again can play that underdog heel that could just kick you where you're down and just being this cocky, arrogant dick. If you're for heels, one of my favorite heel moments as well was that Death Before Dishonor, the first one in 2003, after the Raven CM Punk dog collar match, is when Tommy Dreamer came out, even though this was spoofed off in WWE in 2011 and this year, and it turned out badly. But when Raven had tied CM Punk up in the ropes, and Tommy Dreamer came out and poured beer down CM Punk's throat, that was an ultimately bastardized heel right there. And that just be like, oh my God, did they actually do that?
I thought it was a great moment. I was actually there for that, and I was just really surprised that they continued the feud after that because it had been built up so well. The dynamic was great. Raven and Punk, straight edge versus guy who's recovering from pills and pissed all his fame away or whatever, and Dreamer, of course, being perfect, his former rival, to come in and save Raven at this moment, and then they tie him up and pour beer down his throat. I thought that was the blow-off, but no, they continued it. I don't know why. But thanks for your input there. We can't go without bringing on Royce from Pomona, California. Hey, Royce.
Hello, Eric. I kind of want to talk about both Undertaker and the heels and faces for a while. I want to talk about two Undertaker moments. One is like so bad it's good. And I remember you talked about it on the Facebook page a while back. It has to be, it was back when he was tag teaming with Big Show, and he had this long, drawn-out promo about him and Show in the desert riding motorcycles. And like how they killed a bird, I don't know, they did something. It made
I don't know
sense.
what the fuck he was going for.
It made no sense. It was like he was still trying to be like demonic, but not. And somehow it was weird.
I did like the time when he was under Biker and he spit tobacco on, what was it, Regal's suit backstage. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. And another thing, it was kind of a quick little joke he kind of did. It was when he was heel. And it was like the what chants were like in full effect. Like, what? And he just got fed up. He said, say what if you like to sleep with your sister? And then like half the crowd went, what? Oh. I thought that was pretty funny as well. Well, I think you listed off like a lot of the good matches that Taker has. There's one I think is kind of underrated and kind of overlooked. It's his match with Mysterio at Rumble 2010, yes. I think.
Great match.
Like it was like such a good match that just shows how good both those guys are, and just working with guys who are totally the opposites of each other. It's like it just proves that they could work with anyone.
I don't think that Undertaker had one good match with Hogan ever.
And that's a shame too. Like so many decades, it never worked out, and every time it's always for belt too. There's always just.
Well, I think of the three off the top of my head that they had, the one at Survivor Series wasn't too bad. The match itself, the finish just sucked because it didn't look like he made contact with the chair at all. But at least Hogan sold it, I guess. But that rematch on Tuesday in Texas was just the absolute shits.
Yeah, they're one at like 2.
Yes.
It's like now just a highlight of Undertaker messing up the choke slam now. It's almost Brock Lesnar-esque for me now. And I kind of want to talk about some of the heels that I thought were good. Like, I know you talked about them a few times in the show. I got to say Bob Backlund in 94 with Brett, and then, like, how that kind of interweaved with with Owen and Brett, and how he just, even though it was for Nash, so it was worth it, I think he should have kept the belt a little longer because it just seems like, come on, you kind of had, like, this, I would say money heel, but, like, you had, like, this new kind of character. Even though it was an old guy, it's this new character that could have really went somewhere.
Right. It's not every day that you get handed an angle that has a 10, 11-year backstory, and when you blow it off, you end it
on a house
show. A couple days later.
Yeah. Even though it's Nash, so it's like you can't really be mad at it. So, but still, it was like that character was pretty good, and how it just kind of, and not just the fact that he was like an old guy who hated the new generation, but the fact just like the way he talked and the way he carried himself, this whole using the big words even though he didn't know what they mean, and just kind of the way he like just carried himself, how he stood, and how he just like just like the little details about it, just everything worked with him. And I think you said on the Facebook page how it just seemed like it was building up to that. Like you look at the old, like when he lost the belt, like, he acted kind of weird. He had to, like, how heel Angle act if he lost the belt. He was crying, and he took it a little bit too hard. It just felt like it was building up to him eventually snapping. He was good, and I have to say, even though I like him as a face right now, I got to say Santino, when he was heel, was really on fire and really funny. When, like, he was, like, probably one of the most over guys when he was heel. Like, because I still remember that match with him and was it Molina and Beth Phoenix? Like Santino was getting all the pops.
Mm-hmm.
And
if they ever had the guts to go all the way, just even for a day, like Elimination Chamber, if he'd won the belt even for a day, I think that would have really gotten over. But you mentioned Nash, and He was brought up as one of the worst faces on one of the YouTube comments, and I could see that because he got over essentially in the same story as Randy Orton by being the cool heel that wins, and then he became the smiling babyface, and nobody liked it. And I mean, I still stuck with Nash because I thought he was awesome, but he definitely did turn, as I like to joke, into a 7-foot Hogan. You could especially see it at WrestleMania 11 where he does a big boot to Michaels, and then he starts fucking hulking up essentially before the shitty jackknife that he did. But a lot of people don't like Cena either, or Michaels in his 96 run, which is funny because I think his, let's call it, post-Born Again run as a babyface, he was a very boring, bland character there. And of course, with all the smiling Diesel, Cena sort of shit, Brock was mentioned there too. But Jimmy Hart's one that I never bought either. It was kind of like the same thing as Earthquake before, as I mentioned. When he turned face in 93, I was like, what? Why does this guy want to not hurt Brutus Beefcake all of a sudden when Money Inc. was trying to attack him on Raw? And him as a babyface manager for Hogan, look, I know he's your friend and everything, but Jimmy Hart as a babyface was fucking lame. And so was Triple H when he came back in 2002. I think when he was the leader of DX in 98 or so, and even now as the COO, he kind of works. But especially in 98, I enjoyed him as a face there. But in 2002, after he'd been the cool heel, the game for the past couple years, and then he comes out and does that stupid pose before the pedigree with his jean jacket over the leather jacket bullshit, and I was just like, this does not work. But some of the ones that did were, of course, Sting. He was the clean-cut face of the company for WCW forever. And even as the Crow Sting anti-hero, people still really loved him. Still to this day, I do actually like the Joker gimmick. It came around on me. But Mysterio, as he was alluded to before, in the opposite sense, but he is an underdog. People and kids really get behind him. The original, maybe not the first, maybe not original if you want to say Dusty Rhodes, but one of the first People's Champions, Diamond Dallas Page, was brought up, a big face in WCW people really liked. Goldberg wasn't a lot, which I thought was funny, but I really liked Low-Key for Ring of Honor. When Ring of Honor was first starting to get off the ground and become what it is, there was hype going into it, of course, before the first show. But of all the indie guys that were available at the time, I thought Low-Key perfectly embodied what Ring of Honor was supposed to be and represent, at least on the face side. And it's unfortunate his title reign was so short-lived. They should have gone a lot longer with that, but they wanted to be shocking, I guess. And a couple moments before I get to the calls, because it was mentioned earlier, and I did want to bring up when Stone Cold saved Stephanie McMahon from the Ministry wedding with Undertaker. It's kind of like how, with The Rock, I was kind of criticizing him on the show about undermining people and never taking anybody seriously, especially with that This Is Your Life Cena and rock bottoming fully for no reason shit. Like, what was the point of that? But Austin was a guy I never really got into. I just didn't relate to him myself personally, although everyone else in the world seemed to. I didn't think he was, let's say, as virtuous as Hulk Hogan's babyface run was, so I didn't really relate to him there. But this was great because it was one of the times where Stone Cold, who hates everybody and beats everybody up and he's for himself and give me a hell yeah, actually did the right thing, even if begrudgingly, and saved Stephanie, beat up the Ministry, and when he let her go and she hugged him and he was kind of like, whoa, I don't want to hug you, but thanks, and that was actually pretty cool. Good moment for his character. And I loved Hulk Hogan turning face at Bound for Glory in October. Being there, I couldn't see these details unfold until I saw it afterwards, what the broadcast was like, but it was really like his Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi moment where Immortal is beating down Sting, and Sting is crawling over towards him because he knows there's still good in him. Hulk, please help me. And Hogan looks at the crowd, and the fans, yes, he's going to turn face, yes. And then he tears the shirt and throws his shitty punches at Immortal, and it was such a great moment. We were really cheering hard for that. But one other I wanted to mention, because it goes under the radar a lot, is a few years ago when they were doing an angle on Raw with Legacy, and Randy Orton was ordering the heels out of the ring or some shit, and Mark Henry, just out of nowhere, decided, no, I'm going to stay. You may remember that now that I bring it up, but when he went back into the ring to challenge Mark Henry, essentially, the fans were really behind it, because he was kind of like, not spotlighted, kind of subdued, not really doing anything for a couple years as a heel, whatever. And then Mark Henry stepped up, and fans love seeing people step up. It's like when Austin had this moment on Raw or SmackDown in 2001 where he just challenged anybody, and Scotty 2 Hotty came out of all people. What the fuck? But Austin put so much heat on him in the ring, in his face, berating him and what, to the point where when he finally got to that's the bottom line, Scotty 2 Hotty hit him with that face smash that sets up the worm, and the crowd was red fucking hot. They were on the verge of making somebody. Of course, Austin stunned him and beat him up, and that was the end of that. But people love seeing wrestlers step up like Mark Henry did there. So just wanted to remind you of that one. So let's go to everybody else while we still have the time. Gerald in Mississippi, you were on.
I just want to comment on a couple of things. We talked about Big Show earlier, and my main thing with him is I'm just a big fan of common sense, as you guys know, when it comes to this pro wrestling or lack thereof nowadays with it. It's Big Show, as long as he's being as dominant as he's supposed to be, I really don't care if he's heel or face because he seems to do both pretty well anyway. And I feel the same way about him as I do for Kane and Mark Henry. Just as long as they're being dominant like they should be, I mean, it's all good with me. That's why we bought so much into Mark Henry winning the belt last year, because he finally got a chance to do what he does, which is, and we talked about it before, just playing to people's strengths. You know, whatever they do best, let them do that. And that'll bring out the character the best.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Been a long-time fan. Glad to have you on. 217 area code, name and location, please.
This is Brandon in Indianapolis.
All right, Brandon in Indianapolis. What do you got?
One thing that was brought up on the Facebook group last week, everybody's still online by now, realizes that last Wednesday was it marked 13 years since Owen Hart's death at Over the Edge. Did you watch that pay-per-view live? And if so, just kind of what were your general thoughts on it, like when it happened?
Well, I didn't watch it live. So what I did was I actually, on eBay, bought a tape of the broadcast because I don't want to say it's morbid curiosity, but I really wanted to see what happened. I also had taped Raw the next night, and I had a whole bunch of news stories about it. I was a huge fan of Owen Hart, and whenever it comes to deaths, whether it's his or Benoit's or whatever, it's always a very touchy subject and always leads to a lot of debate, which is good and healthy, or at least a lot of discussion. And what people tend to forget about it is it was a preventable accident, and it shouldn't have happened. And I know there's a lot of factors that go into that because they had certainly done it before, let alone WCW had done it tons of times. But I'm talking them in particular had done it before, and it was really just completely unnecessary. But I don't want to say I love any aspect of it, but just kind of in a morbid sense. But the part I love about it the most, and I got this from reading Martha Hart's book, which I wasn't aware of before, is originally it was going to be him coming down with, you may remember, Mascarita Sagrada Jr., or as he was called in WWE, Max Mini. Max Mini was going to be a mini blue blazer attached to his stomach, essentially, and they were going to come down together. Could you imagine how much of a fucking circus wrestling would look like if the headline was, Wrestler and Midget Die in Stunt?
Yeah, that'd be pretty bad. If you're Vince, do you stop the show right then, or do you just let it go on like he did?
Absolutely stop the show. I know everyone's like, they were chickens without their head. They said you didn't have to go out if you didn't want to, blah, blah, blah. And some others take the opposite stance where it's like, it must go on, it must go on. But whatever the case was, shows have been stopped for less. And I think especially with the circumstances, now granted it wasn't mid-show, but just the fact that they canceled Raw when the Benoit murders came out and sent people home, I think that kind of lends credibility to that. Now, like I said, it was mid-pay-per-view, not cable, and it was mid-show. Like, I think maybe the second or third match in, it wasn't that long into the show. But still, the extenuating circumstances here, they could have made up for it in many ways, and it would have been better safe than sorry, I guess. I don't see... If I was in Vince's shoes, and of course a lot of us can't understand what that means, I just don't understand how he did it.
Right, and the thing most people forget about that is, like, do you remember what the match was that came on right after that?
I believe it was a four-way with, it was the tag match with Jarrett and Deborah against Val Venus and Nicole Bass, I think.
Right. I'm in a kind of way, I'm kind of more like you. I didn't really. In my own way, I didn't start really getting into wrestling again until after that happened, you know. But I've heard stories about, Jarrett and Deborah kept looking back to the back and could barely, keep a straight face during their promo.
it's really hard to watch. You can see how upset they are, and that's their friend. It really just breaks my heart, even to this day. I loved Owen Hart, and he, of all people, that shouldn't have happened to him, and it's just really still heartbreaking. I still think about that sort of thing. Like, people rip on Martha Hart for her lawsuit and whatever, and I'm like, she lost her fucking husband. You can't fucking change that, and her kids have to grow up without their father. So if I'm going to take anybody's side, whatever's legally right, of course, whatever's in writing, but still, I just don't see how people can rip on her so viciously as they do. But thanks a lot for your call. I really appreciate that. 203 area code, name and location, please.
Hey, it's John from Connecticut. I got 2 questions for you. With TNA recently signing Brooke Hogan and with them having the desire to shove Garrett Bischoff down our throats on TV, I want to know, how do you feel about nepotism in wrestling, and what do you feel is the worst example of nepotism in wrestling?
Everything you just listed. But really, nepotism is just another form of favoritism, which it's a good old boy network wherever you go in wrestling. People are always going to get their friends in a place. I've fucking experienced it myself with ring announcing. At least that's my interpretation of it. People always go to their boys first instead of anybody else. Seeing that a lot in wrestling. But as far as nepotism goes, I'm sure a lot of people would bring up Eric Watts when Bill Watts was running WCW. We've seen a lot of second generation, or now even into third, happen. But it was more of a territory thing where the second generation guy would get pushed, whether it was deserved or not, or get their son a spot. I'm fucking shocked that Animal hasn't been back in WWE yet, frankly. Garrett Bischoff has to be the worst right now, at least off the top of my head, because who gives a fuck, really?
Really, you think worse than David Flair?
David Flair, no one thought was good anyway, but like at least when he was the U.S. champion in '99, it was part of whole Flair's power trip thing. I'm going crazy as the president, and everyone knew David Flair didn't deserve the title anyway, so at least it wasn't supposed to be taken seriously.
I just thought that whole thing was terrible. It got to the point when I was watching it, when he would come on, I'm like, I can't do this, and like just switch over to Raw. I think the only good thing David Flair ever gave to us was when Undertaker beat his ass when he was feuding with Flair before WrestleMania 18.
Just the fact that he had a job at all in WWE is a perfect example of that, I think, but thanks a lot. Awesome questions, and you guys have done such a great job today. I'm so glad that we put so many of you on. Once we sort out what we may do in the future with Wrestling Roundtable Radio, if anything, I will let you all know, and I hope we hear more from you in the future. But with what time we have left, any other final words, Jeremy in New York, Jeremy Lucy?
One of the best faces, and I know you're not a big fan of him, but I for some reason, I still am a fan of Jeff Hardy, because I don't know what it is about it. It's just kind of that image he puts out. He's very free spirited and all that, which isn't really healthy at all, and I will not really support those acts or whatever, if he still does or not. If he's
I'll actually pay him a compliment. I think this new makeup, whatever he's doing, actually looks kind of cool.
Yeah, with the eyelids painted and everything, that is kind of neat. But he's always been. It seems even when the cards aren't in his favor, everyone's still, when he goes out there, people just mark out and they're like, holy shit, it's Jeff Hardy, But that was one of the bigger, just to name one. But for like a face moment, just the whole tribute show for Flair when he retired. I mean, just all the names that were coming out there. They're bringing out Dean Malenko. They were bringing Big Show was in tears. That was just a really good send-off. And that's one of those things where you get to see somebody go away, and it's a very positive moment. People are on their feet. I'd have to say that's probably one of the best moments.
Yeah, and his comeback on Nitro in September '98 was kind of like a shorter version of that, on a smaller scale, I should say, because it was very anticipated, of course, and it was a Horseman reunion and everything, a new formation, but that was definitely on a bigger scale. So thanks, Jeremy. Any last thoughts, Frank?
Best real-life heel, Vince Russo.
Not to me. Anytime I've interacted with him, he's been a real sweetheart, so I don't have anything bad to say about him from the few interactions I've had with him.
Yeah, you know what? I think he's pretty decent, but just on the last note, it's been an honor to have been essentially a guest panelist, and it's kind of cool. You were talking about the butterflies, and I had that when you well into the UFC discussion. So it's been just great, and like I alluded to in my note to you that people didn't get to see. I've been listening on a loop, whether I'm at the gym, I'm driving to school, driving to work. I plug you. I'll download, in sequence the iTunes ones, and I'll put them onto my iPod and, laugh along with the laughs of past panelists and, really get into the discussions to the point where I'll miss a bunch of exits, but
it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, so it's just what you've done is great. You specifically, you put a lot of your energy in. It's going to pay off, man. It's going to pay off, whether it's in the quote-unquote 9 to 5, whether it's in wrestling. It's going to work out for you. So thanks a lot, Eric.
I thank you very much for those compliments. I do have some plans. Hopefully they work out, and we'll see how that goes. I will keep everyone informed. And, of course, whatever happens with Wrestling Roundtable Radio, let's just say it's the end for now. And I'm sorry to say goodbye, but on the other hand, hopefully we have some other things on the horizon, if not another version of this. But thank you to everybody who called in. I really appreciate you, especially staying on for such a long overtime. Longest show we've ever done, and what better time to do it on the 50th show. Nice round, even number, and the last one for now. So for Will Brooks, Frank, and Jeremy, and everyone else who called in from around the country and really around the world, thank you so much, and I hope you appreciate everything we've done and you've participated in. Don't forget, those archives are not going anywhere. If you want to be like Frank and download everything and listen to it whenever you can, the archives will always be there. And stay up to date with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Go Fight Live, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and, of course, WrestlingRoundtable.com, where you can get all the links. So thank you very much. I'm the host, Eric Santamaria, and this was Wrestling Roundtable Radio.